As for cultivation of the brain, it was even more impressive. The chant had no more than 100 words, yet contained the world's boundless mysteriousness. Just a single word encompassed many profound matters. However, as for how much he could understand from it, that relied solely on the cultivator's own comprehension strength. In short, the pulse-searching method thoroughly engrossed Chu Feng, because he felt if he were to completely grasp the pulse-searching method in the future, he truly need not worry about any cultivation resources. Perhaps relying on the pulse-searching method, he would become a supreme expert, because he felt hiddenly that the pulse-searching method seemed to conceal some divine secret. So, Chu Feng's days were entirely cast into the cultivation of the pulse-searching method, and that lasted over 2 full months of time. In 2 months, the elite armament chariot flew over innumerable deserts and plains, and rivers and lakes. They even flew past several small-scale sea regions. And after 2 full months non-stop all-out hurrying, Chu Feng and the group finally entered the Eastern Sea region. Chu Feng, Chu Feng. At that instant, Chu Feng was currently in his room, painstakingly studying the pulse-searching method. But when Su Mei's beautiful and excited voice rang out without end, Chu Feng had no choice but to stop cultivating. "Little Mei, what's the matter?" Opening his eyes, Chu Feng discovered that Su Mei and Su Ro, the 2 sisters, were standing in front of him presently. Moreover, sweet smiles were worn on their pretty little faces. "Hesh, quickly come and look. You will know when you see it." Su Mei didn't explain. She directly grabbed Chu Feng's hand and pulled Chu Feng out. After walking out of the room and coming up to the window, Chu Feng's pupils couldn't help shrinking abruptly, before similarly his face brimmed with excited emotions. Because at that very instant, underneath the elite armament chariot, it was an edgeless and endless sea. But that sea was completely different from what Chu Feng saw before. The seawater was azure, and large waves rose into the sky. Even the smallest were several meters tall, while the largest reached heights of several hundred meters. They were truly incomparably fierce. At that very instant, despite standing within the elite armament chariot, Chu Feng was also able to hear the sounds of the waves and the noises of the wind. A sea like that was absolutely not something ordinary people could survive in. And a region of sea like that was clearly the Eastern Sea region. The Eastern Sea region, completely boundless. Above this sea are only islands, but the sizes of these islands are over several times larger than the continent of the 9 provinces. The Eastern Sea region, imperceptibly deep. From what I've heard, there lives within the bottom of the sea enormous and vicious sea creatures. There are even powerful monstrous beast species living deep under the sea for very long years. Similarly, within the bottom of the sea, countless artifacts can be found, and the number of treasures is even immeasurable. Jiang Wushang said on the side, "It is indeed not simple. Entering this place is truly like coming to another world." Chu Feng was quite amazed as well. It was as though he entered a new point in his life. The Eastern Sea region was very big. Even though the 4 Seas Academy was located at a relatively eastern location, if they wanted to reach it, they still needed a few more days. After roughly 2 weeks of rushing, an island finally appeared within their lines of sight, and on the island, finally, they saw traces of humans. "Look, there's a tavern ahead. Since we're not far from the 4 Seas Academy anyway, why not go down there and have a meal? Let's check out how the Eastern Sea region's dishes taste like." Jiang Wushang pointed forward and loudly yelled out. Looking over at that direction, a very large tavern was indeed situated there. Many chariots and special horses halted outside. There were even monstrous beasts, bound by spirit formation ropes. Simultaneously, many figures were scuttling. Even though the distance was still very far, they could see that almost everyone there was a cultivator. Even many chariots were pulled by monstrous beasts. How was that even like a tavern? It was simply like a small-scale city. At least in the continent of the 9 provinces, Chu Feng and the others had never seen a tavern of such magnitude. They had never seen so many cultivators gathered in a single tavern as well. "Why, there's so many people. Let's go down and have a look. After eating rations for so long, I also want to savor appetizing dishes." At the same time, Su also exclaimed with a face full of longing. Seeing that, Zhang Tianyi, who was currently responsible for urging the chariot forward, looked at Chu Feng, and after seeing him nod his head, he drove the chariot forward, and entered the vast tavern directly, following the entrance of the elite armament chariot, driven by Chu Feng and the others. Into the tavern, the attention of quite a few people was aroused. After all, elite armaments were treasures. Even in the Eastern Sea region, they were still priceless, especially when the elite armament chariot Chu Feng and the others sat in was extremely luxurious. Naturally, it attracted some observers. Even in the first instant, some people gave birth to malicious thoughts. Since this place wasn't within the borders of the Four Seas Academy, and it was located quite remotely, there would usually not be any investigations after an instant's killing, robbing, and silencing via extermination. So many criminals stood guard at a place like that, specializing in finding weak people for unlawful activities. However, after Chu Feng and his group walked out of the elite armament chariot, the ones with malicious intentions couldn't help dispelling those thoughts. 5 young males and females, 3 in the 3rd level of the Heaven Realm, 2 in the 2nd level of the Heaven Realm. That age, that strength, even in the Eastern Sea region, it was not weak in the slightest. It was even to the extent that, when some people saw Chu Feng and the others, they actually evaded hurriedly, a bit of fear emerging into their eyes. Only some fearless people, who were attracted by Su Rose and Su Mei's beauty, dared to shoot another glance. But when they discovered that there was some aggravation within Chu Feng's and the others' gazes, they also quickly redirected their sight. As they smiled apologetically, they speedily left, deeply afraid being given a lesson by Chu Feng's group. It seems like no matter where, people still bully the kind and fear the evil. Seeing the crowd that surrounded with tiger-like stares, yet rapidly withdrew after he displayed his strength, Zhang Tianyi smiled derisively. The weak are meat and the strong eat. That's the only rule of this world, without exception regardless of the place. Chu Feng also smiled. Guests, are you staying or eating? Just at that moment, a male dressed as a waiter ran over with a face of smiles. But despite of that, even though it was a waiter's attire, his clothing was many times more gorgeous than a waiter's clothing in the continent of the 9 provinces. He simply did not even seem like a commoner. But the thing that shocked Chu Feng was that the waiter was actually a cultivator belonging to the Origin Realm. So this is the Eastern Sea region, huh? Even a waiter has the cultivation in the Origin Realm. But at present, the one most astounded was none other than Su Mei. It was because her initial cultivation was in the Origin Realm. If the Pearl of Flames didn't enter her body, perhaps she would still be in the Origin Realm right now. Yet in the Eastern Sea region, a lowly waiter who poured tea for others was quite unexpectedly also in the Origin Realm. That really stunned her, and she even felt a bit of unfairness. Lady Su Mei, you need to get used to this. This is only the Eastern Sea region. I've heard in the holy land of martialism, some monstrous beasts with noble bloodlines are born in the profound realm. Jiang Wusheng hiddenly sent a mental message as he saw Su Mei's stunned expression. After hearing his words, Su Mei's already shocked face became even more shocked, because it was the first time she truly felt what there's a sky beyond a sky, and a person beyond a person meant. It was not strange that the continent of the 9 provinces was called a tiny place in the eyes of many experts. However, even though it was the Eastern Sea region, and cultivators with decent cultivation were scattered everywhere, in actuality, there weren't many people who stepped into the Heaven Realm. At least within the several thousands of people in the luxurious tavern, there were no more than 100 who were in the Heaven Realm. And even of those who did, most of them were middle-aged uncles or aged people. There were very few people who were as young as Chu Feng and the others. That was also why the appearance of Chu Feng and the others struck fear into so many people. They were not only afraid of their cultivation, they felt more strongly about there being an enormous power behind their backs. After a short moment of sighing, they booked a fairly good room in the tavern. They were comfortably prepared to have a taste of the Eastern Sea region's delicious foods. Junior Chu Feng, I have something I want to discuss with you in private. But just as they entered the room, Chu Feng received a mental message. Following along the sound and looking over, he saw Zhang Tianyi currently looking at himself with smiles. Go ahead and order some dishes. I'm going to take a leak. In response, Chu Feng quickly stood up and headed out. Junior Chu Feng, wait for me, I'm going as well. Understanding. Zhang Tianyi also followed out. But just as they walked out of their booked room, there was rumbling like bursts of deafening thunder. Gazing at that direction, they saw several extravagant chariots being pulled by heaven realm monstrous beasts from the east. They traveling along in the air, and at the end landed in the tavern. After those chariots landed, several armored men walked out of the chariot. There was 38 of them, and they were all in the heaven realm. What surprised Chu Feng and the others the most was that the one who led was already in the 5th level of the heaven realm. But the most significant thing was his age. It was similar to Zhang Tianyi's. He was a young man. The young man was clearly the leader in that group of people. And from his conversations to his subordinates, Chu Feng and Zhang Tianyi also learnt their identity. Like Jiang Wusheng, they came from the east as well, from a place called the Shentu dynasty. They were special people who had inherited bloodlines. As for the young man with strength in the 5th level of the heaven realm, his name was Shentu Long. He was a prince of the Shentu dynasty and was also preparing to enter the Four Seas Academy for cultivation. They were the same as Chu Feng and the others. After such a long voyage, they saw this tavern and decided to take a small break. A group of truly impressive characters came from this year's Shentu dynasty of the eastern continent. A few days ago, 2 Shentu dynasty princes have already come from the eastern continent. They had the cultivation of the 4th level of the heaven realm. That age, that cultivation. If they entered the Four Seas Academy, they will be able to receive focused development. I didn't expect the Shentu dynasty to send some in the 5th level of the heaven realm today. The Shentu dynasty should be the strongest power in the eastern continent, right? The appearance of Shentu Long and the others drawn many people's attention. Some of the surrounding observers even started to exclaim and discuss with low voices. The eastern continent they mentioned was actually the place Chu Feng and the others came from. At that place, several continents were connected with one another, separated only by rivers. So the entirety of the continents was called the Eastern Continent by the people of the Eastern Sea region. The hell are you looking at? Scram. If you disturb my prince's rest, you will all die. However, not only did the people from the Shentu dynasty ignore the crowd's exclamations and praises, they even pointed at them and loudly cursed. A very vile attitude. They are truly looking to die. As he saw that scene, Chu Feng's complexion couldn't help changing, his fists unavoidably clenching lightly. Even though the people from the Shentu dynasty were pointing at the crowd and cursing, in reality, they also included Zhang Tianyi and him, insulting them as well. But before Chu Feng went forward, he felt a hand pulling him back. Turning his head to look, Zhang Tianyi was shaking his head slightly to himself, saying quietly, Junior Chu Feng, it is our first time here. Given the choice to do more or less, why not do less? Endure one moment, the winds will be calm and the waves serene. Take one step back, the ocean will be peaceful and the sky clear. Hearing that, Chu Feng remained silent. He wasn't afraid, but just didn't want to give no face to Zhang Tianyi. Afterwards, they no longer paid attention to the people from the Shentu dynasty and left the tavern towards an unpopulated area. Senior Zhang, just speak your mind. There is no need to hold yourself back on anything, Chu Feng said with a light smile. Then I won't bother with courtesy words. By calling you out here, I do indeed have one thing I want you to help me with. Zhang Tianyi said. What is it? Just say whatever's on your mind. Chu Feng smiled brightly. It's actually nothing big, but Junior Chu Feng, since you're not planning to cultivate in the Four Seas Academy, according to your nature, you should be planning to journey around the Eastern Sea region, right? Zhang Tianyi said. that's not false. I have some things I need to do, and those things destine me to travel through the Eastern Sea region." Chu Feng nodded his head without confirming nor denying. "Then that's great. Junior Chu Feng, take this with you. When you traverse places, please look around, and if you see this symbol, please tell me." As he spoke, Zhang Tianyi took out a jade ornament from his pocket and handed it over to Chu Feng. "This is." Accepting the jade ornament, Chu Feng's pupils couldn't help shrinking, and on his calm face some astonishment emerged. That jade ornament was black. The material it was made of was special, and even with Chu Feng's current strength, it was impossible to break the jade ornament. Clearly, it was not an ordinary jade ornament. Moreover, engraved on the jade ornament was a special picture, a delicate sword. If the scale of the sword was enlarged, it would be a very long and broad sword. However, by the sides of the sword, a pair of wings was engraved. The wings stretched outwards, as if it was going to fly out with the large sword. So, looking at it from that perspective, it seemed more like a special symbol, or something that contained a special meaning. "Senior Zhang, where did you get this jade ornament?" Chu Feng asked curiously. Intuition told him that the origin of the jade ornament was absolutely not simple. "To be honest, I've had amnesia," Zhang Tianyi said a bit embarrassedly. "What amnesia?" Hearing those words instantly, Chu Feng was even more astounded. "That's right. When I lost my memories, I was only 6. I don't remember what happened before I was 6 years old. I only know that back then, I was situated in an alien land, and only later on did I learn that the land was called the Azure Province. Me back then had absolutely nothing. Other than the set of clothes on my body, there were only 2 things. The first was this jade ornament, the other is this." As Zhang Tianyi spoke, he took out a book. On the front were 3 big words: "Forbidden Mysterious Technique." "Senior Zhang, you." At that instant, Chu Feng was also incomparably startled, because he seemed to have understood a few things. It appeared like the forbidden mysterious technique Zhang Tianyi cultivated was not found by chance. It was already on him. More importantly, the jade ornament and mysterious technique proved already one thing: Zhang Tianyi's ancestry was likely very special as well. "I don't know why I lost my memories, but I feel that I don't belong to the Azure Province, nor to the continent of the 9 provinces. This jade ornament should be able to unravel the mystery of my ancestry, and perhaps it can help me retrieve the memories I had before 6 years of age." "Junior Chu Feng, you don't need to specially search anything for me, because these things rely merely on luck. You only need to pay slightly more attention, and it will be fine just like that. Honestly speaking, even I cannot confirm whether they are in the Eastern Sea region or not." A light grin was worn on Zhang Tianyi's face, but Chu Feng could feel the sorrow veiled over by his smile. A child of only 6 years old, fatherless and motherless, completely alone. Chu Feng could imagine the kinds of hardship one needed to face in that situation. When he was young, even though his life in the Chu family wasn't optimal, there was at least someone taking care of him. But Zhang Tianyi, on the hand, didn't. Clearly, his younger times were more painful than his. The most important thing, however, was Chu Feng also having great desire to understand his own background. Hence, Chu Feng was able to closely sympathize with Zhang Tianyi and feel his current emotions. "Senior Zhang, don't worry. I will definitely pay attention. But keep the jade ornament on you. I have already memorized its appearance," Chu Feng somberly guaranteed. While he spoke, he returned the jade ornament to Zhang Tianyi because he knew how important it was to him. "Then sorry to trouble you, Junior Chu Feng." After hearing Chu Feng's response, Zhang Tianyi also smiled happily. Afterwards, Chu Feng and Zhang Tianyi returned to the tavern, but before approaching it, their faces experienced change. It was because they discovered bewilderedly that there was smoke rising inside the tavern. Clearly, someone initiated an attack inside, but at present, Jiang Wushang, Su Rou, and Su Mei were still inside the tavern. Naturally, Chu Feng and Zhang Tianyi were very anxious. At that moment, within the tavern, The room booked by Chu Feng and the others had been flattened. Many structures surrounding it became wreckages as well. That place already became ruins. Su Ro and Su Mei stood in the heart of the ruins with faces full of fury. They supported a person together, that person being exactly Jiang Wushang. "I'm fine. It is but a scratch." On Jiang Wushang's current forehead he wore a golden, dazzling, royal character. It could be seen that he used the power of his bloodline. But in spite of that, on his body there were a few wounds, and a sliver of blood trickled out of the corner of his mouth. There stood a group of people from the Shentu dynasty in front of Jiang Wushang. Unquestionably, the ones who injured Jiang Wushang were them. "HMPH, you were so arrogant I thought you must have impressive strength, but in reality, you are only trash. Your surname Jiang, right?" The prince called Shentu Long questioned with contempt. "That's right. What about it?" Jiang Wushang stubbornly wiped the traces of blood from the corners of his mouth and loudly asked, "What? HMPH?" Shentu Long sneered, then said to the guards next to him, "Remember, he is surnamed Jiang, so his dynasty should be called the Jiang dynasty. By giving birth to garbage like this, it seems like there is no need for his dynasty to continue its existence. When you return to the dynasty, remember to report this to father. Send people to eradicate that Jiang dynasty. Leaving a dynasty like that in this world will do naught but lower the status of royalty. They are not worthy to possess inherited bloodlines." Hearing those words, Jiang Wushang gnashed his teeth in rage, and as he spoke, he was going to attack Shentu Long again. But before letting him make his move, he was stopped by Su Ro on the side. Her brows knitted lightly, hiddenly warning him not to be rash, to wait for the return of Chu Feng and Zhang Tianyi. They would then naturally be able to take care of Shentu Long. Jiang Wushang did not belong to the category of fools, so he clearly knew he could not defeat Shentu Long after his previous exchange against him. If he continued being foolhardy, though it would not count for much whether he got injured or not, if he were to drag Su Ro and Su Mei down with him, he would let Chu Feng down too much. Thus, he who was usually reckless also forcibly pushed down the flames in his heart and didn't say anything more. My lord, stop, stop. It's my fault, it's my fault." Just at that moment, an old man beautifully dressed ran over with an apologetic smile on his face. That old man's cultivation was not weak, being in the 3rd level of the heaven realm. Following behind him was a group of cultivators, their cultivation also not weak. However, looking at their attire, they were likely staff of the tavern so clearly. The old man was the boss of the luxurious tavern. "Who are you?" Shentu Long looked at the boss disdainfully. "My lord, I'm the owner of this tavern," the boss said with a smile. "Hell, you're the owner of this tavern. You dare to even appear in front of my prince." After knowing who the boss was, one of the Shentu dynasty guards in the 4th level of the heaven realm gripped the old man's clothes and angrily howled. "Ah, manners, manners. Pay attention to manners. We are ones with status." Shentu Long smiled strangely and said, "HMPH." Only after seeing Shentu Long personally speak did the guard release that boss. "Thank you, my lord, thank you, my lord." Being released, the boss hurriedly kowtowed as gratitude to Shentu Long, because their strength did indeed cause him endless horror. However, what he didn't know was that things were not as simple as they seemed. He saw Shentu Long wear a smile on his face, yet speak chillingly. "I grace you with my presence, but you didn't even prepare a decent room for me. Do you know what sentence you deserve for committing such an offense?" This. "I do not." Hearing those words, the boss's expression unsettled, and he subconsciously retreated a few steps. The death sentence. Shentu Fang's face abruptly turned cold. His hand struck out, fiercely slamming the boss's face. Powerful heaven power went through his body, and with a bang, the tavern's boss became a mist of blood, dissipating in the air. "Ah, murder, murder. The ones from the Shentu dynasty are murdering in the Eastern Sea region." Seeing that, the people who went along with the boss broke out in a cold sweat from terror. As they screamed loudly, they scattered. "Where are you going? All of you stay behind and accompany your boss to the grave." However, Shentu Long coldly snorted, then waved his hand. emitting boundless heaven power, forcefully crushing the dozens of experts in the profound realm into pools of blood. Go, kill everyone here. Leave none alive. Shen Tu Long spoke to the guards behind him after killing the powerful group. Yes, sir. Hearing Shen Tu Long's words, a few guards unhesitantly rose into the air. Those who were seen by their naked eyes received their cruel slaughter. In an instant, the luxurious tavern became a war zone. Flames rose into the sky, rumbling unceased. Coincident with those noises were dismal implorations and screams. You are so freely killing innocents. Are you even human? Seeing the events unfolding in front of her, Su Mei could not continue enduring. She pointed at Shen Tu Long and furiously rebuked. Human. Of course, I'm not human. To be more precise, I'm God. The people here occupy too much space. That's why I can't even book a slightly more luxurious room after coming to this place. They've delayed my journey, disrupted my plans, and no matter if it was intention or not, death is the best punishment for them. Shen Tu Long said complacently. You are simply an animal, Su Mei loudly cursed. Animal? Okay. You dare to say I'm an animal. I will let you know what a true animal is. Men, strip these two women. I will give your eyes a treat and act out a scene in a Chun Gong too. As Shen Tu Long sinisterly cackled, he lustfully swept over Su Ro's and Su Mei's proud, beautiful bodies. Yes, sir. Hearing his words, the two guards currently standing behind Shen Tu Long flew up together, dashing toward Su Ro and Su Mei in the air. The cultivation of those two guards was not weak, as both were in the fourth level of the heaven realm. You are truly looking to die. Looking at them, Jiang Wushang's eyes could spit fire from anger, revolving the heaven power within his body as well as his bloodline power. He wanted to give those two guards a good lesson. Although he was no match for Shen Tu Long, his battle power was more than enough to take care of the two guards. However, before Jiang Wushang got a chance to attack, suddenly, seemingly limitless heaven power fell down from above. With a boom, a huge pit appeared 10 meters away from Jiang Wushang. Shifting his gaze back at the two guards, they were already crushed to death forcefully, becoming two meat patties. Simultaneously, a voice filled with bloodlust descended from the heavens. Soon afterwards, two figures landed in front of Jiang Wushang, Su Ro and Su Mei. Those two people were none other than Chu Feng and Zhang Tianyi. The one who attacked just now was, of course, also Chu Feng. God damn, you dare to attack my people. You are truly looking to die. Men, send them all to death. Seeing two of his own guards killed, Shen Tu Long became enraged as well and howled at the sky. Hearing those words, the guards who were massacring became furious as well. All of them flew back, and without another word started to attack Chu Feng. You wish to kill me. None of you are qualified. However, Chu Feng did not fear in the slightest, as he faced the powerful ones flying towards him from all sides, of which the weakest were only in the second level of the heaven realm, while several were even in the fourth level of the heaven realm. His hand waved, then immense heaven power stormed into the sky, and like fierce, wild beasts, consumed them in one go. Ah, Prince, save me, At that instant, one could hear continuous cries of misery and unbroken screams. The guards of the Shen Tu dynasty were experiencing great agony. They were because Chu Feng didn't immediately kill them. He was tormenting them, using heaven power to, bit by bit and inch by inch, rip their skin, bones, and even nerves. The pain made them wish they were dead as they were in pain. You are truly looking to die. Seeing his own guards being abused and mocked right in front of himself, Shen Tu Long's killing intent overflowed out of him. A furious howl rang out. Then a dazzling royal appeared on his forehead with a flash. At that instant, his aura of the fifth level of the heaven realm increased by several times. His battle power did indeed not allow for any underestimating, and he was many times stronger than those guards. HMPH. However, to Chu Feng currently, no need to even mention the fifth level of the heaven realm, even the sixth level, or even the seventh, was not enough to strike fear into him. Lightning surged within Chu Feng's eyes, and his aura rose rapidly. In a blink, He rose from the 3rd level of the heaven realm to the 6th level of the heaven realm. After his cultivation raised, with a thought, several bangs resounded like explosions. The Shentu dynasty guards in midair all became pools of blood, and like rain, sprayed down and fell upon Shentu Long's body. At that instant, not only Shentu Long, even Jiang Tianyi, Jiang Wusheng, Su Rou, and Su Mei were stunned. They already knew Chu Feng was very strong, but they never would have thought he reached such a level of power. Chu Feng's strengthened cultivation entered the 6th level of the heaven realm already, especially when they thought about Chu Feng's horrifying battle power, and also thought about Chu Feng's cultivation at present. They were totally able to imagine how strong Chu Feng's real power reached. Even those in the 8th level of the heaven realm might not defeat Chu Feng. You, I will cut your corpse into 10,000 pieces. When he faced Chu Feng currently, Shentu Long, who overflowed with self-confidence and was already consumed by anger, simply did not feel the perilous aura. Disregarding everything, he started his attacks on Chu Feng. A furious roar could be heard before radiance flashed in his 2 hands. There was then 2 elite armaments, a blade and a sword, that appeared in the air. Go! Quickly after, he pointed at Chu Feng. The 2 elite armaments streaked through the air, and with the might of elite armaments, pressed towards Chu Feng. At that instant, Su Rou, Su Mei, Jiang Wusheng, and even Jiang Tianyi felt the strong pressure, and had to admit that Shentu Long was indeed very strong. Not only was his cultivation quite good, his battle power was extremely powerful as well, seen from his ability to channel power into 2 mastered elite armaments. If they were fighting one-on-one, likely even Jiang Tianyi could not defeat him. But regretfully, the one confronting Shentu Long was not Jiang Tianyi, but Chu Feng. Good timing. Whoosh facing the 2 elite armaments descending from the sky, Chu Feng did not retreat and instead rose into the air. Coming into the air, Chu Feng spread both of his arms, formed a claw shape with his hands, and actually clawed towards the mastered elite armaments, which contained very strong power. Chu Feng. Seeing that, Su Rou and Su Mei both deeply broke out in a cold sweat for Chu Feng. After all, they were able to feel the might bottled within the 2 elite armaments. At that instant, only Jiang Tianyi was comparatively serene. He who had truly fought against Chu Feng knew deeply how powerful he actually was. You dare to receive elite armaments barehanded. You are truly looking to die. Seeing Chu Feng's actions, Shentu Long coldly snorted and formed a hint of a derisive smile. At the same time, he put all his strength into the 2 mastered elite armaments, wanting to kill Chu Feng in a single direct blow. BZZZZ*. Just at that moment, Chu Feng's palms already neared the blade and sword, the 2 elite armaments. Both weapons and palms seemed to wish to go through one another, as blinding sparks arose, and layers of ripples never-endingly exploded in the air. But Chu Feng was unstoppable. Putting strength into his palms, he actually grabbed the 2 elite armaments into his hands. Then one could see his arms tremble, as 2 bursts of boundless power were channeled into the elite armaments. At that instant, the 2 weapons were intensely vibrating, but very quickly, the horrifying might disappeared, and finally, the elite armaments were taken down by Chu Feng from the air. Chu Feng truly took on the 2 horrifying mastered elite armaments barehanded. How is this possible? You actually. Seeing his 2 mastered elite armaments truly grasped by Chu Feng, Shentu Long's eyes were widened even larger than a cow's, his gaze full of astonishment. I must say, although in terms in quality, these 2 elite armaments are just a bit inferior to my Asura Ghost Axe, their quality is still quite good out of the mastered elite armaments I've seen. Little Ru, Little Mei, how about I gift these 2 elite armaments to you 2 for protection? Chu Feng held the 2 elite armaments and cheerfully looked at Su Rou and Su Mei. Sure. Seeing that, Su Rou and Su Mei nodded in agreement with faces full of smiles. Although they were 2 powerful elite armaments, 1 blade and 1 sword, they had very elegant outward appearances, very suitable for females to use. If Su Rou and Su Mei used them, it would be perfect. Bastard thing, You dare to give away my elite armaments. You are looking down on me too much, are you? Seeing Chu Feng actually pass his two treasures to others, Shen Tu Long vividly grinded his teeth. But he wasn't too nervous, because they were mastered elite armaments, treasures that were connected to his heart and mind, allowing him to freely control them. So radiance flashed in his palms, formless power pouring into the two elite armaments in Chu Feng's hands. He wanted to summon his weapons back to his own hands. HMPH. However, Chu Feng coldly snorted at Shen Tu Long's actions. His hands quivered faintly as he imbued what seemed to be infinite heaven power into the elite armaments. Then, hearing a bang that came from the elite armaments, Shen Tu Long's face immediately turned incomparably deathly white. At the same time, the light in his palms disappeared. Then a large mouthful of blood sprayed out with a poof. What is happening? Zhang Tianyi and the others were astounded as they saw the events unfolding in front of him because evidently Chu Feng did not make a move on Shen Tu Long. So why did he receive heavy injuries? You cut off my connection to the elite armaments. In that moment, Shen Tu Long's face was full of shock. His previous haughtiness existed no longer, endlessly fear taking its place. As the victim, he understood very clearly what happened. The reason why he suffered heavy injuries was for none other reason, but because Chu Feng cut off the link between him and the elite armaments. To be more precise, the two weapons currently no longer belonged to him. It wasn't like he hadn't heard of things such as cutting off another person's connection with their elite armament, but it applied only for situations when the render had strength far above the owner of the elite armament. Although Chu Feng aura was currently in the 6th level of the heaven realm, he clearly shouldn't be equipped with such an ability. Yet Chu Feng did it. In addition to Chu Feng's various methods previously, he made him aware of a very frightening problem. He was facing an extremely horrifying opponent. Whoosh feeling things going awry, Shen Tu Long quickly turned around, wind rising under his feet. He was using a bodily martial skill as he wanted to flee. Naive. However, Chu Feng disdainfully smiled at Shen Tu Long's actions. Quickly after, his hand turned into a claw shape, and he grabbed the air. Immeasurable heaven power gushed out, formed a huge heaven power hand, and clasped Shen Tu Long down. Boom. After snatching him down from high in the air, Chu Feng suddenly flicked his entire arm downwards, fiercely throwing Shen Tu Long onto the ground. The powerful force immediately formed a huge pit on the surface of the ground. Shen Tu Long's body even kept on making cracking noises. Clearly, the bones throughout his body was shattered by Chu Feng. After dropping Shen Tu Long down, Chu Feng gradually walked up to him and stepped on his head. Bastard! You dare to do this to me? Do you know who I am? If my father knows about this, he will definitely kill you. He will kill all of you. Shen Tu Long furiously howled. As a lofty prince, a famous genius within his clan, he had never received such ridicule. Are you certain your father will know about today? The corners of Chu Feng's mouth rose to form a strange smile. Gulp hearing those words. Shen Tu Long couldn't help swallowing some spittle. His formerly still arrogant complexion was replaced straightaway by terror. He already understood Chu Feng's thoughts, because there was something called silencing by extermination. Just now, you said we delayed your journey, so we should die. Then do you know the consequences of daring to attack my friends? Chu Feng indifferently asked while looking at Shen Tu Long beneath his feet. My brother, it's a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. It is really a misunderstanding. I initially had no intentions of touching your friends. Hey brother, what are you doing? Just let me go and talk this out with words. At that instant, Shen Tu Long panicked. He was truly afraid that Chu Feng would kill him. But Chu Feng did not give him any opportunities to explain himself. He lifted him up with a single hand, then spread out his spirit power before flying to the northwest. Zhang Tianyi and the others felt puzzled at Chu Feng's actions, so they hurriedly rose into the sky and chased after the direction Chu Feng flew towards. After ascending into the air, only then did they discover that the luxurious tavern became completely void of people. Other than the corpses which littered the ground and themselves, there was basically no one left alive. As for the reason, it was actually very simple. It was not the people from the Shentu dynasty who killed everyone there. It was just that after encountering the Shentu dynasty's carnage, of those who survived, which ones dared to stay behind? They had already slipped away like a sliver of smoke. Asterisk boom asterisk, but just at that moment, Chu Feng came above a structure, threw his palm downwards, and demolished it with an explosion. After the structure vanished, a vast area contained yellow-colored substances suddenly emerged onto the surface of the ground. Coinciding with that was an unbearable stench that came permeating through the air. It was a huge excrement pit. Asterisk asterisk after blasting the pit into the open, Chu Feng waved his hand and enveloped layers of spirit formation onto Shen Tu Long's body. In addition to that, Chu Feng even laid another formation on top of the spirit formation. Only after doing that did he chuckle towards Shen Tu Long and said, "Don't worry, I won't kill you. Wah wah, what are you doing?" Seeing Chu Feng wicked smile, Shen Tu Long immediately gulped as he broke out in a cold sweat throughout his entire body. Even his clothes were drenched by sweat. He truly broke down from terror. "You will soon know what I am doing." Chu Feng smiled strangely, then waved his hand and threw Shen Tu Long downwards. Hearing a poof, he shot immediately into the pit of excrement. "Ah, tilde, damn your ancestors. You dare to throw me into this pit. I will kill you, I will kill you, I will definitely kill you." At that moment, Shen Tu Long was incomparably furious and roared without end, but Chu Feng paid no heed to his curses. Rather, a faint smile was always worn on his face. He started to lay a spirit formation and actually covered the excremental pit, then moved over large pieces of debris to thoroughly bury the pit. After completing the deeds, Chu Feng flipped his hand, and several cosmos sacks appeared. All of those were from the people of the Shentu dynasty. Although Chu Feng killed many people, he struck appropriately. Not only did he absorb their source energy for Egi before their deaths, he even looted their cosmos sacks, as well as the treasures they brought along and had on themselves. Chu Feng finished all of that in an instant. If it were before, Chu Feng wouldn't be able to do such things, but he, at present, can. That was Chu Feng's current power. I didn't expect the Shentu dynasty to be this wealthy. After examining the objects in the cosmos sacks, Chu Feng nodded his head satisfiedly. It could be said that the Shentu dynasty was truly quite wealthy, especially Shentu Long. He himself brought a frightening amount of fortune. For heaven beads alone he obtained 10,000. One must know if Chu Feng were to convert all of the Jai dynasty's wealth he plundered into heaven beads, he could get, at most, a bit over 100,000. But Shentu Long, he alone actually brought 10,000 heaven beads. Either he was an insanely wasteful person, or his Shentu dynasty was truly abundant in wealth. Big brother Chu Feng, you really do have good ideas. You are drowning him alive with excrement. At that moment, Jiang Wushang flew over and said with a smirking face as he looked towards the pit of excrement below, already covered by Chu Feng. Junior Chu Feng, that brat is too full of himself. He dared to attack Brother Wushang and had malicious thoughts towards Lady Su Ro and Lady Su Mei. We should punish him well. Killing him immediately is too benevolent. At the same time, Zhang Tianyi vented his anger. As he faced their gazes, Chu Feng, a light smile on his face, said, "No, I am not drowning him to death. That spirit formation will protect him, preventing him from directly contacting the excrement." "What? Junior Chu Feng, what are you planning? Why not just use excrement to drown him to death?" "Yeah, big brother Chu Feng, what are your plans? Could it be you are preparing to starve him to death?" Zhang Tianyi and Jiang Wushang expressed confusion to Chu Feng's words and started to guess his intentions. "No, I'm not starving him to death either." Chu Feng shook his head with a smile. "Ah, big brother Chu Feng, exactly how are you planning to take care of him? Don't leave us in suspense and quickly tell us." Jiang Wushang really impatiently wanted to know the answer. "That spirit formation will protect him, separating him from the excrement, but he will not starve to death because on the spirit formation that's protecting him, I laid another formation. That formation absorbs the energy from the outside and forcefully channels it into his body. Incidentally, that energy is sufficient to sustain his life. As for that outside energy, I'm sure all of you know what it is, right? Chu Feng grinned evilly. Hearing those words, Zhang Tianyi and Jiang Wushang looked at each other with their 4 eyes, their heads completely foggy. But soon they understood something and asked together, "Is it excrement?" "That's right, excrement. He cannot escape because my spirit formation bound his power. He will not starve to death because that formation will feed him the energy converted from excrement. No matter if he's willing or not, the formation will turn the excrement into energy and imbue it into his body. Unless one day he completely absorbs all of the excrement, he will not die." Chu Feng smiled and said smugly, "Haha, big brother Chu Feng. Good thing you thought of forcefully submerging this Shentu Long into excrement." Jiang Wushang swayed back and forth from laughter. "Junior Chu Feng, I must say that this move is even eviler than what I had initially thought. I'm guessing that this Shentu Long must really want to die right now." And on Zhang Tianyi's face, even some admiration appeared. Su Rou and Su Mei seemed a bit speechless when seeing their reactions, although they knew Chu Feng was venting their anger for them. In their perspectives, forcefully feeding a person excrement, no matter how one thought of it, was revolting. That made them, who originally wanted to cram themselves with food, lose their appetite completely. In addition, there was no one else able to prepare them food in the luxurious tavern. So Chu Feng and his group continued their journey. After a while of traveling, they finally entered the Four Seas Academy's territory. It was a continent formed by countless archipelagos. Although it was fragmented, its total surface area was several times larger than the continent of the 9 provinces. And such a huge land was all of the Four Seas Academy's territory. Most importantly, on the large stretch of land, all of the structures were under the name of the Four Seas Academy. From that, it could be seen how enormous the Four Seas Academy was. A truly large force of power. But despite the Four Seas Academy's massive size, there were not many disciples in there. One must know that the peak powers of the 9 provinces had around 10 million people. But it was said that the Four Seas Academy, a power so distinguished, had no more than several 100,000 people when all elders and disciples were summed up. And most of those were even elders. Though there were few people in the Four Seas Academy, the disciples there could be called the dragons within men. Just take the simplest thing. If one desired to enter the Four Seas Academy, it mattered not if you were a male or a female. There were even no restrictions on age. But there was one mandatory requirement. You had to be in the heaven realm. The heaven realm. They were all in the heaven realm. Several 100,000 heaven realm experts. They were real elites. My God, they are actually all in the heaven realm. Cultivators titled peak experts in the continent of the 9 provinces are everywhere here. At that moment, as she looked upon the continual emergence of people, Su Mei's face was full of amazement. It was because no matter if she gazed at an old one, or middle-aged one, or a young one, there was not any who was in the profound realm. All of them belonged in the heaven realm, and there was a large number of them. It was difficult for her not to be amazed. No need to be awed. This is, after all, the Eastern Sea region. The heaven realm isn't much in this place, and only martial lords are the truly strong ones. Only martial kings are the unparalleled experts. There are too many people who can step into the heaven realm. Jiang Wushang explained. Brother Wushang is correct. A certain area of land brings about a certain type of people. The spiritual energy, origin power, profound power, and even heaven power here are many times denser in comparison to the continent of the 9 provinces. It can't be helped that the cultivators in this place have cultivation that is not weak. Moreover, disregarding the natives of the Eastern Sea region, those who are able to come to the Eastern Sea regions from faraway lands do not have weak cultivation. The weak would not dare to come to this place. Even more, so as the Four Seas Academy have very strict requirements for disciple recruitment, although they do not limit based on age or origin or gender. for those who wish to join them. The minimum is the heaven realm. Even those in the heaven realm need to pass through examinations and tests. So that's why everyone who shows up here are cultivators in the heaven realm. Yet even that may still not be enough. Chu Feng explained with a smile. It seems like the proverbs are quite correct. Right now, I truly understand what there is a person beyond a person, and a sky beyond a sky means. After hearing Chu Feng's and Jiang Wushang's words, Su Mei seemed to be serene. A hint of happiness even emerged onto her face. By relying on the Pearl of Flames, her cultivation reached the heaven realm. Because of that, she initially even thought that she was exceptional. After all, in the Azure province, the heaven realm was like a legend. So in that instant, she knew that the heaven realm wasn't really anything. That being said, however, the reason she rejoiced was exactly because she obtained the power from the Pearl of Flames. If not, she would have been in existence. He has a very strange nature, and there are very few disciples who catch his attention. It can even be said, ever since becoming a divine instructor, he had never accepted a disciple. So don't have expectations that he will come this year. Yuha said, he's that unconventional. Does the Four Seas Academy not care about his actions? Chu Feng felt bewildered. Becoming an instructor, yet not instructing any disciples. It was like occupying the toilet, but not taking a crap. Yet the Four Seas Academy allowed such behavior. Ho! To Chu Feng's question, Yuha chuckled, then went near his ear and said in a low voice, when a person reaches a certain level in strength, he can create exceptions. The examination of the Four Seas Academy was very complicated, especially as several tens of thousands of people entered at the same time. Going through them, in turn, required several full days before it could be completed. And in this period of time, Chu Feng continued studying his pulse-searching method in his resting area while awaiting their examination results. Chu Feng. Several days later, the resting area, which had remained in silence for many days, was disrupted by a voice brimming with joy. At that instant, Chu Feng knew that the lengthy examination finally ended. When Chu Feng opened his eyes, he saw his room's door pushed open and a beautiful body dashing in, immediately arriving in front of himself, leaping into his embrace. Looking at the little beauty before him, Chu Feng chuckled, because that person was none other than Su Mei. Seeing that you're so happy, you've passed. She has not only passed. Big Brother Tianyi and I really admire Lady Su Ro and Su Mei to death. But before letting Su Mei respond, Jiang Wushang's voice rang out at the door. Turning towards the voice, he saw Jiang Wushang, Zhang Tianyi, and Su Ro walking in. There were faint smiles worn on their faces, especially for Su Ro, the alluring and mature great beauty. Her smile could truly dazzle a person to death. Brother Wusheng, why so? Chu Feng asked curiously. It turned out that in this examination, the 10 divine instructors came over to observe. Big Brother Chu Feng, you must not know about the 10 divine instructors, right? These 10 divine instructors are truly outstanding. I will explain it to you like this. In the Four Seas Academy, there are no masters, only instructors. Instructors are the ones who teach us abilities. There are also different levels of instructors, and the 10 divine instructors are the 10 strongest divine instructors in the entire Four Seas Academy. Their position is supreme, and they are extremely exceptional. It is everyone's wish to become their disciple. As long as one becomes their disciple, not only will they obtain development of the highest quality, they will acquire an extremely high position as well. Even many elders and instructors will respect them. Lady Su Ro and Lady Su may have caught the eyes of 2 divine instructors. Moreover, it was determined on scene that they need not participate in any more exams or competitions, also meaning that in the next 4 years, they are disciples who will be specially developed by the divine instructors. Big Brother Chu Feng, you don't need to worry about anything. These 2 divine instructors are female, so they were definitely not enticed by Lady Su Ro's and Lady Su Mei's beauty, but saw their potential. Jiang Wushang narrated with an extremely admirative tone, but from his face overflowing with smiles, one could see that he also felt happy from the bottom of his heart for Su Ro and Su Mei. Brother Wushang, Stop acting like a victim here. Aren't both you and Senior Zhang also very impressive? You've also gained the approval of divine instructors. As long as you can gain victory in the showdown tomorrow, you can become disciples of those divine instructors. Su Rou said on the side. Showdown. What's this? Hearing the word showdown, interest immediately came for Chu Feng as he hurriedly asked. Chu Feng, it's like this. Senior Zhang and brother Wusheng caught the eyes of two divine instructors. However, that applied also for many other powerful disciples. Yet every divine instructor can instruct only a single disciple. So if brother Wusheng and Senior Zhang want to follow them, they must defeat the other disciples and reign victorious at the end. Su Rou walked up to the Chu Feng and warmly explained, those two divine instructors are too half-hearted to select multiple disciples at the same time. Chu Feng teasingly said, so that's why I said Lady Su Rou and Lady Su Mei are impressive. They have no need to participate in any showdowns, and were directly secured as disciples by their instructors. It can even be said it's the first time this happened in history. Jiang Wusheng said, curling his lips. This is actually not really much because, other than the two instructors who chose Lady Su Rou and Lady Su Mei, all of the other instructors chose multiple disciples as well, and many wanted to have a process of elimination. Zhang Tianyi said smilingly, But Big Brother Chu Feng, you don't need to worry about anything. Big Brother Tianyi and I have already meticulously examined our competition. Honestly speaking, yes, there is pressure, but there's not much. Yes, that's right. The interesting thing is, within the people who are competing against me and Big Brother Tianyi, there is also a pair of brothers surnamed Shentu, and they've come from the Shentu dynasty as well. I'm sure they must be related to that Shentu Long in some way. Jiang Wusheng said with an evil smile, seeming to want to take revenge for Shentu Long's bullying back then. If they are related, then great. If not, no matter. All in all, this is a rare chance. Regardless of who your opponent is, do not have mercy. The more you let the instructors see your abilities, the more advantageous it will be to your future developments. So do not hold anything back. Chu Feng gravely reminded, don't worry. Big Brother Tianyi and I are people who do not like to leave face for our opponents, right? Big Brother Tianyi. Jiang Wusheng smugly looked at Zhang Tianyi. Facing Jiang Wusheng's question, Zhang Tianyi smiled, then said, of course. Ha 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 ha. At that instant, Chu Feng and the others happily roared with laughter. They were all very joyful. After all, if Zhang Tianyi, Jiang Wusheng, as well as Su Rou and Su Mei, could truly become disciples of divine instructors, then it would be accurate to describe their position in the Four Seas Academy as stepping to the heavens in a single step. In terms of strength, they will rise abruptly. In terms of status, they will also receive many people's respect. Ahaha, congratulations, congratulations. But just at that moment, from outside the door suddenly came incomparably excited laughs. After those laughters sounded, Chu Feng and the others all looked at each other. Their smiles on their faces couldn't help becoming even wider, because without even seeing the person they knew who it was. It was definitely Yuha. Juniors, really, congratulations. You've actually all become disciples of divine instructors. In the future, please treat me well. Indeed, Yuha soon walked in from outside, and there were even some gifts in his hands. But behind him, there was even another Four Seas Academy disciple who followed. He had also a face full of smiles, and was similarly holding priceless gifts. Senior Yuha, what are you doing? Seeing that, Jiang Wusheng asked a bit puzzledly. Junior Jiang, please accept this. It is but a small part of my heart, think nothing of it. Yuha forcibly pushed the presents in his hands to Jiang Wusheng. Yeah, juniors, these are just small parts of our hearts. You must accept them. In the future, we will still need to rely on your care. Quickly after, the disciple behind Yuha also, full of smiles, brought gratulatory gifts and went forward. At that instant, Jiang Wusheng was in a bit of a difficult situation. He didn't know whether to accept the gifts or not. So he cast his gaze towards Chu Feng and Zhang Tianyi. Brother Wusheng, just accept them. After all, Senior Yuha has looked after us quite well, so it is only reasonable to take care of each other in the future. Chu Feng smiled. He had always recognized favors and paid them back. Although Yuha had dishonest intentions when contacting them originally, he had helped them after all. Thus, it was only right to look after him as well. As for the other person, since Yuha brought him over willingly, they undoubtedly had a very good relationship. So, there was no problem in him using his closeness with Yuha and also obtaining a tiny bit of the benefits by being with Chu Feng and the others. After hearing Chu Feng's words, Jiang Wushang did not hesitate anymore and accepted the presents successively. Ah, thank you, Junior Chu Feng. Thank you, Junior Wushang. Thank you. Thank you. The thing that made Chu Feng and the others speechless was that after Jiang Wushang accepted the presents, Yuha and his friend actually bowed and thanked without end. Their level of shameless bootlicking skills was indeed exceptional. Suro Sume, Jiang Wushang, Junior Jiang Tianyi, do you live here? But immediately after accepting their presents, a voice that was rather loud yet very soft rang out from outside. It seemed like more people learn of them becoming disciples of divine instructors and came to gift presents, hoping to befriend them. But Jiang Wushang and the others did not accept the presents from those people. The reason was very simple too. After eating one's food, your mouth goes numb. Therefore, you do not curse them after taking their things. Your hands becomes short. Therefore, you do not fight them. It wasn't that they were approaching unkindly, but there was really no need to become acquainted with people who wished to do naught, but to take advantage of them. If you flourished, perhaps they would be completely obsequious and be a cow or horse as you so desired. But if one day everything fell apart, not only would they entertain themselves from your own misfortunes, they would even strike when you were down. It'd be wise to distance oneself from those kinds of people. Like that, after several continuous waves of people came, even Jiang Wushang and the others could not bear it any longer because those people would not stop the pestering. It was not easy to handle them, but just as Chu Feng and the others were irked, Yuha and the others were quite complacent. It was not Schadenfreude, of course. The reason they felt happy was because Chu Feng and the others accepted their gifts. After all, their position in the Four Seas Academy was not high, and those who came bearing presents were in better positions than they were. But people like them were all denied entry by Chu Feng and the others, while they received treatment for distinguished guests. Even if they didn't want to be smug, they couldn't. It was the first time in the Four Seas Academy that they felt superiority. Juniors, right now, your names resonate too strongly. There will be many more people coming to befriend you. It will never end if this continues, and I'm afraid you will even find it difficult to sleep peacefully tonight. How about I bring you to another residence? But while being pleased, Yuha did not forget to dissolve their concerns, so he suggested on his own initiative, "Oh, Senior Yuha, you can find a rather tranquil place for us to rest. We wouldn't be disturbed by anyone anymore." Jiang Wushang expressed uncertainty. If those people could find out that they lived here, how could it be they couldn't do so after they switched places? That's very simple. There are records of you living in this place, so of course it's easy to find you guys. But if you come to the residence in my land naturally, they will not be able to locate any of you. Yuha said. Will this not be too inconvenient? Chu Feng asked. More importantly, he was worried Yuha would offend many people by doing that, and was afraid he would attract unnecessary troubles. Don't worry. Although my land isn't too big, it is not small either. There are mountains, creeks, lakes, not to mention empty houses. The environment over there is much better too. Put away your worries and follow me. Yuha patted his chest, guaranteeing. Seeing that, Chu Feng and the others hesitated no longer. After a simple pack-up, they followed Yuha and left. But before walking to the teleportation array, they discovered there were people endlessly flying past in the sky, heading towards the center area of the vast city. In addition, on their faces, there were bits of excitement and longing, as if there were a good occasion. Senior Yuha, what are those people going over there for? Chu Feng asked curiously. Every year at this time in the center of the city, there will be some auctions. As long as you have treasures, you can sell them off for quite good prices. Of course, because these auctions are set up by my 4C's Academy, there will be some processing fee taken. Junior Chu Feng, is there anything you want auctioned off? If there is, you can do so with your 2 junior status. Given their current positions, there will be no need to take any processing fee. Yuha explained, as the people here come from many places, every year, there will be some strange treasures taken out for auction. There are even people who come here, not to join the 4C's Academy, but for auctioning treasures off their hands. If you are interested, there is no harm in going over and having a look, because this auction that happens only once a year can be counted as a rare festival. Even many disciples and elders of the 4C's Academy will come for the liveliness. At the same time, the disciple who came along with Yuha spoke. It seemed like he had quite some interest in the auction as well. Really? Chu Feng, since this auction is so interesting, let's go take a look. It's still early after all, so why not go join the liveliness? Hearing those words, Sume got interested and started to shake Chu Feng's arm as she tugged it. That's fine. Incidentally, I have some things I want to sell off, so I will have to trouble you, Senior Yuha. Chu Feng said with faint smile. Back then, other than cultivation resources, he obtained quite a few valuable treasures from the Jai dynasty. It was wealth that the Jai dynasty accumulated over several thousands of years. At first, he wanted to use those treasures for trading the cultivation resources that the Azure Dragon founder and the Jiang dynasty's old ancestor looted from the other 2 dynasties, but they just gave Chu Feng cultivation resources and did not take his treasures. Those treasures were currently all on Chu Feng. Moreover, since there was no use in keeping them, it would be better for Chu Feng to sell those things, converting them into cultivation resources. Then leave a portion for personal emergency uses, and also leave a portion for Su Rou, Su Mei, Zhang Tianyi, and Jiang Wushang for unexpected situations. After deciding, Chu Feng and the others went to the auction grounds. It was a huge square, and within the square, people formed mountains and oceans. Within the square, there existed over 100 auction stages, selling off various treasures. It could be said that a large group of people surrounded every single auction stage, endlessly bidding and overriding bids. It was a very explosive scene. Only in the heart of the square, the largest, most luxurious auction stage was completely empty. Although there was nothing being auctioned on the stage, the outside was already filled with people, and their faces looked very forward to what was coming. That's the most exciting auction out of all these auctions, and it only starts after the sky darkens. The ones able to appear in this auction are not priceless treasures, but peculiar oddities. Every year some rare good objects appear, so it is also the auction people look forward to the most. Yuha explained for Chu Feng and the others. Senior Yuha, if you can, sell off all the things I have here. Optimally, change them all to heaven beads. Chu Feng handed a cosmos sack to Yuha, inside containing all the treasures he plundered from the Jai dynasty. Since the 4C's Academy was equipped with specialized appraisal elders for the auctions, in addition to Su Rou and Su Mei, already disciples of divine instructors, Chu Feng was not afraid that Yuha would swindle him, because he likely did not have the guts to do so. Junior Chu Feng, this. After Yuha accepted Chu Feng's cosmos sack and examined within, his originally composed face immediately surged with astonishment. It was because the treasures inside filled the eyes with dazzle. There were even several elite armaments, and even 3 mastered elite armaments. Even if he didn't want to be shocked, he couldn't. Senior Yuha, is there a problem? Chu Feng asked with a smile. There's no problem, there's no problem. I will certainly give you good prices for these. Wait for me, I will auction these off for you right now. Yuha hurriedly replied, immediately flying towards an auction stage. Initially, their talent made him feel that they were not simple people. Yet Chu Feng just casually took out so many treasures for him to auction. So, from that point on, he decided to better the relationship between him and them. He would even be willing to sacrifice his own interests for an improvement in closeness. Oh, Yuha, you poor brat, What are you here for? Could it be you also have treasures for auctioning? One of the elders responsible for appraising in the auctions revealed a disdainful and derisive attitude. It was because he recognized Yuha, and also knew he was an ordinary and useless disciple. If one were to look into that elder's heart, they would discover contempt. It is not me who has things to auction. I am auctioning in place for those juniors over there. In usual circumstances, Yuha would definitely pettily greet that elder, but at present he did not. Rather, he very calmly pointed at Chu Feng and the others in the sky. Oh, the appraisal elder felt rather surprised at Yuha's abnormal behavior and followed along Yuha's fingers looking over this. But after seeing Chu Feng, his eye couldn't help lighting up because Chu Feng, with his age, in addition to his cultivation of the third level of the heaven realm, could absolutely be considered to be a genius even in the Four Seas Academy. This, isn't this? But when he saw Jiang Tianyi, Jiang Wushang, as well as Su Rou and Su Mei, his expression became stunned. As he was an elder, he had the authority to gaze upon the information of the disciples who participated in the exam. In order to avoid offending outstanding disciples, he had especially looked at the information of the disciples who had excellent results in the examination. So naturally, he recognized Jiang Tianyi, Jiang Wushang, as well as Su Rou and Su Mei. The sisters had already been confirmed to be disciples of divine instructors, and though Jiang Tianyi and Jiang Wushang hadn't been confirmed yet, their strength gave them strong chances to become disciples of divine instructors. Of the 10 divine instructors, only 9 were willing to instruct disciples, and of those 9 disciple slots, currently 4 appeared right in front of his eyes. Moreover, other than those 4, Chu Feng's cultivation was not simple at all either. Furthermore, seeing their intimate appearances, without even a thought the elder knew they were in a close group. It was a group of geniuses. Yuha, you've actually got acquainted with them. At that instant, in the gaze that the appraisal elder looked at Yuha with was filled with wonder. Not only did it no longer have its former disdain, there was instead an extra hint of respect. Coincident with that also shock and confusion. He could not understand. Geniuses like them should be extremely proud. How could a person like Yuha get himself related to such geniuses? HMPH. But of course, I even have a great relationship with these juniors. Before, innumerable people had came bearing gifts, yet they were all denied outside. They were willing to befriend me only, and were simply treating me as a blood-related elder brother. Otherwise, they wouldn't have given me such valuable things for auctioning. Seeing the completely inverted attitude that the elder gave him when compared to before, Yuha seemed even smugger. As he spoke, he directly threw the cosmos sack Chu Feng gave to him at the appraisal elder. And after the elder looked through the treasures in the cosmos sack, his face couldn't help changing, and he couldn't help gasping deeply. Although he had seen many treasures, there were very few people who took out so many in one turn. Normal people could not own so many treasures. Elder, you should know my junior's identity, so it would be wiser to give them good prices. Also, there is no need for the processing fee, right? Ah yes, change everything to heaven beads as well. Only heaven beads, Yuha instructed. Right now they are counted as people from my Four Seas Academy, so naturally, there is no need for processing fee. Also, his things are in high demand, so don't worry. It will definitely not be hard to auction them off for good prices, nor is it difficult to exchange them for heaven beads. But after the auctions, I will be counting on you to say a few good words in front of them. The appraisal elder solicitously smiled and said, despite being an elder in front of instructors, his position was not high, especially to elders like him, who were responsible for very trivial matters. To him, disciples of divine instructors were great people who held very high positions. It will be nothing. Yuha very calmly smiled, but his heart was filled with excitement. It was because he knew that from today on, Yuha, was going to flip upside down. He was no longer going to be a person looked down upon. He was going to be a person that many people respected and wished to befriend. And all of that happened was for no other reason, but because he was lucky and got himself acquainted to the geniuses. After that, Chu Feng and the others went around the auctions. Seeing little toys Su Rou and Su Mei liked, Chu Feng extravagantly bought them, making the two girls very happy, particularly when Su Mei gave a kiss to Chu Feng in front of the large crowd. That attracted quite some people's attention and admiration. After all, no matter where Su Rou and Su Mei were, they were beauties who caught other people's awareness. And Chu Feng was accompanied by the two completely different styled beauties, one alluring and mature, the other pure and cute. Naturally, it gave rise to envy from the observers. Time passed, and in a blink the sky became black. The auctions also reached the final, most exciting stage. Because of Su Rou and Su Mei's current special statuses, Yuha helped them obtain several seats very close to the auction. Junior Chu Feng, your treasures simply could not keep up with demand. They have all been sold. Shortly after they sat down, Yuha, who went in a circle to auction off the items, walked back with a cheerful face. Moreover, he even held a high-quality cosmos sack in his hand. Junior Chu Feng, your things have all been sold, Yuha said after coming back from the auctions. Sorry for the trouble, Senior Yuha. Chu Feng accepted the cosmos sack, but when he examined inside, his expression couldn't help changing greatly because he discovered, astounded, that there were 150,000 heaven beads packed in the cosmos sack. Although his treasures were invaluable, according to Chu Feng's calculations, it would already be extremely challenging to sell them off for any more than several tens of thousands of heaven beads. Yet presently, he obtained 150,000 beads. That truly exceeded his expectations by a long shot. Junior Chu Feng, I wonder where you got so many treasures from. Although many are goods for living, they have long years of history, some even of several thousands of years. Treasures like those are very well received. As Chu Feng had his doubts, Yuha spoke. After hearing his words, Chu Feng roughly understood some things. The Eastern Sea region was incomparable to the Eastern continent. In this place, there were even martial kings, let alone heaven beads. It was likely there were even martial beads. Something that this region lacked the least should be cultivation resources. But after all, the Jai dynasty had been prospering for so many years. Thus, it was reasonable that the treasures they accumulated sold well here. Oh, isn't it Junior Su Rou and Junior Su Mei? So you know these two bumpkins. But just at that time, a sharp voice rang out behind him. Turning his head back to look, he saw a group of people walking towards them. The ones who led were two young men. They had the cultivation of the 4th level of the heaven realm. Moreover, they wore the exact same clothing as Shentu Longs. So with a single glance, Chu Feng knew who they were. They were definitely the two people from the Shentu dynasty, who were fighting for the 2 disciple spots against Jiang Tianyi and Jiang Wushang. Big brother Chu Feng, the two of them are Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai. They are likely brothers with that Shentu Long. Indeed, Jiang Wushang's voice verified Chu Feng's guesses. Behind Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai followed 4 disciples from the 4 Seas Academy. Clearly, they were the same as Yuha. Knowing that the 2 people from the Shentu dynasty were very possibly going to become disciples of divine instructors, they tried to become acquainted with them. Or else, why would grand disciples of the 4 Seas Academy, like little brothers, follow people who hadn't even officially become disciples yet? After Chu Feng indifferently swept his gaze over those people, he coldly said, "Whose unleashed dogs are being so damn rowdy? God damn, who are you? You dare to speak to Junior Shentu like that?" However, before letting the 2 people from the Shentu dynasty speak, the middle-aged disciples behind them pointed at Chu Feng and howled, "He is my fiancé. Do you have any complaints?" But just at that moment, Su Rou spoke. Displeasure was everywhere on her exceptionally beautiful face. Her pair of pretty eyes were like invisible blades as they emitted eerie cold glares. It could be seen that she was truly furious. "What? Junior Su Rou, he's your fiancé?" Hearing those words, the crowd was both shocked and frightened. Shocked because such an excellent woman like Su Rou actually had a fiancé. That more or less broke the hearts of the male disciples who longed for Su Rou. And the reason they were frightened was because Su Rou was truly angry. They were able to feel Su Rou's killing intent. Although, with their cultivation, They were simply not afraid of Su Ro. Her current status was something that had to be feared. Not only is he my elder sister's fiancé, he is also my fiancé. So you better speak more politely or else I will report this to Instructor Duanmu that someone has disrespected me. You will then definitely not escape the consequences. Just at that time, Sume fiercely spoke as well. The instructor Duanmu she mentioned was the divine instructor who took her as a disciple. This. At that moment, those people were completely stupefied. What was happening? Where did that brat come from? Taking the huge beauty Su Ro was one thing, but he also took the little beauty Su Mei. He took in the pair of beautiful sisters, and those sisters even seemed like they completely surrendered themselves with unwavering hearts and would marry no one other than him. It really made everyone feel a bit of disbelief, like a huge hammer of several billion tons stuck their heads to the point of buzzing, especially Su Mei's words of reporting to Instructor Duanmu. That made many people mute from fear, because it was not a small matter. If Instructor Duanmu put down punishments, not to mention them, even their own instructors would have to receive the penalties. At that time, they would truly have horrid luck. Fiancé huh? It's not only he's truly become your husband. Why so protective? That's right. Juniors, there are exceptional people everywhere in the Four Seas Academy. He only has the cultivation of the 3rd level of the heaven realm. Is he worth it for you to entrust yourselves to him for your entire lives? From what I see, it's much better to go with us. While many people feared, the two brothers Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai intentionally provoked. After all, the two of them were people also chosen by divine instructors. Moreover, they had great confidence they could become the disciples of divine instructors. So naturally, they were not frightened by Su Ro and Su Mei. Do you wish to die? At that moment, Chu Feng was furious. Bloodlust was evident in his words. When there were really people who dared to make fun of his fiancées in front of him, and moreover in public, Chu Feng truly had killing intentions. Chu Feng. Seeing that, Zhang Tianyi quickly went close to him and powerfully patted his shoulders, signaling him to not act rash. He understood Chu Feng too well. Chu Feng was a smart person, and he definitely knew in those circumstances he could not easily perform attacks. But Zhang Tianyi also knew that Chu Feng was a bloodthirsty person. If that bloodthirstiness was thoroughly ignited, Chu Feng would do some insane things, disregarding the consequences. So he was truly afraid of Chu Feng starting a massacre at that place, because with Chu Feng's cultivation, he could, without any problems, kill Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai. However, Chu Feng did not enter the Four Seas Academy. That was the issue. He belonged to those outside of the academy, whereas Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai had already entered the Four Seas Academy and could be counted as being somewhat part of the Four Seas Academy. If Chu Feng were to kill those two, he would simply be slapping the Four Seas Academy's face. No matter what, the academy would not forgive Chu Feng, so he could not allow Chu Feng to assault them at that place. Shentu Jiang, Shentu Hai, you've got some problems. If you do, come at me. I, Jiang Wushang, will keep you busy at any time. Jiang Wushang was also enraged. With a bang, he stood up and loudly yelled at Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai. His voice was clear, and almost everyone in the square heard it. Countless gazes looked towards them. Those gazes belonged not only to those of outsiders. Many were also disciples of the Four Seas Academy. There were even some elders and instructors. You think I'm afraid of you? I just don't want to attack you in this place. Facing the gazes of the crowd, containing even of elders and instructors, Shentu Jiang did not dare to be too aggressive. He pointed at Jiang Wushang and said, "Brat, just wait. Wait until tomorrow and see how I will take care of you." After finishing those mean words, they waved their big sleeves, walked towards nearby seats and sat down. Big brother Chu Feng, don't worry. Just watch how big brother Tianyi and I will take care of these two bastard dogs tomorrow. After Shentu Jiang and Shentu Ha left, Jiang Wushang spoke solemnly. However, Chu Feng only lightly smiled at Jiang Wushang's words and then gestured for them to sit down, and no longer paid attention to Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai. although Chu Feng feigned indifference on the surface. Within the gaze he swept over their backs with immense bloodlust emerged. Chu Feng was definitely not going to just simply teach them a lesson when they dared to toy around with his own women right in front of his face. He would kill them. As long as the chance was given, he was definitely going to kill them. Though their side's disturbance attracted everyone's attention, after the auctioning elder for the finale auction stepped onto the stage, everyone's gazes were taken away by him, because all of them knew that today's greatest scene was finally going to begin. Sorry for the wait, everyone. In today's auction, we've received quite a few treasures. I'm sure many of you will feel interested in the first item that will start it off. As the elder spoke, two young and beautiful females behind him pushed an exquisite little cart onto the auction stage. Those two did not have very high levels of cultivation, and were clearly not people from the Four Seas Academy. It was likely they were that elder's, or a certain disciple's servants. The little cart they pushed up was very intricate too. Treasure was placed upon it, ready to be auctioned, but veiled over the little cart was a shiny cloth. That cloth was not normal cloth, as it was reinforced with a spirit formation. Even world spiritists could not detect what the treasure underneath. The cloth specifically was with spirit power. That increased the mysteriousness of the auction treasure, as well as the audience's expectation. Asterisk whoosh asterisk, the elder waved his big sleeve. Then the two beautiful females pulled away the shiny cloth. A delicate dagger 3 inches long, swirling with 5 different colored brilliants, appeared within the crowd's line of sight. Rainbow Dagger. It is the mastered elite armament personally made by Senior King Xianru of the Immortal Execution Archipelago 500 years ago, and also the only elite armament he made in his entire life. Starting price 5,000 heaven beads. The auction elder loudly called. 5,000. A mastered elite armament like that is actually selling for 5,000 heaven beads. Chu Feng was a bit shocked. Indeed, the rainbow dagger's quality was quite nice, but it wasn't even comparable to his Asura ghost axe. It was, at most, similar to the 2 mastered elite armaments he looted from Shentu Long. Although within the category of mastered elite armaments, its quality was decent. The starting price being 5,000 heaven beads seemed a bit too high. 9,000. 9,000, I will take it. However, when people started to endlessly bid, and when a person even called the price up to 9,000 heaven beads, Chu Feng understood. The people of the Eastern Sea region truly did not lack money. No wonder the things he plundered from the Jai dynasty, which were simply useless in his eyes, could sell for 150,000 heaven beads. From then on, there was a myriad of treasures entering the stage continuously, and there were also many different prices for them. However, not a single one of them could move Chu Feng's heart. That continued until another elite armament emerged onto the stage, of which stirred up Chu Feng's interest. It was Elite Armament Fan, and it wasn't even a mastered elite armament. It was just a normal elite armament fan. But the special thing about it was the map imprinted upon it. It was said to be a treasure map, but because the specific lines on it were too blurry, no one was able to determine if it was real or fake. The reason why Chu Feng felt interested wasn't because of the fan itself. It was because Shentu Jiang seemed to be interested, which in turn made him interested. 5,000 heaven beads. Shentu Jiang yelled loudly. The fan wasn't mastered, and despite there being a map on it, because it was a bit blurry, he could not determine the specifics. But also because of that exact same reason, there were very few people willing to start a bidding war against him. The starting price was merely 3,000, so he was confident he had it with 5,000, 6,000. But at that moment, Chu Feng unconcernedly yelled out such a number. Hearing that, Shentu Jiang lightly furrowed his brows and fiercely glared at Chu Feng, but said nothing other than another bid. 7,000 heaven beads. 8,000. Chu Feng continued bidding. At that instant, the fury on Shentu Jiang's face soared immediately, because he could tell that Chu Feng was messing with him. Yet he did not dare to be sure whether Chu Feng was the same as him or not, to take a chance with luck, to hope that the elite armaments map was truly a treasure map, and to see if he could find any opportunities within. But no matter what, he would not easily give up. So he glanced at Shentu Hai beside him. After a nod of his head, Shentu Jiang involuntarily gnashed his teeth, as if stealing his heart before loudly yelling, 10,000 heaven beads. What? 10,000 heaven beads? This elite armament's worth 10,000 heaven beads. Yeah, it is only an ordinary elite armament, and it's not even a mastered elite armament. It is on a completely different level than the high-quality rainbow dagger before. The only special thing about this is the imprinted map on it. But since that map is so hazy, you can simply not ascertain if it's a treasure map or not, or even if it's a map or not. It is simply not worth such a price. Not to mention 10,000, this elite armament is really worth no more than 3,000 heaven beads. Ah, with a single gleam, I know already they are from the Eastern Sea region. Only people from that place have excessive hopes that they can rely on something like this to gain some sort of chance encounter. Yet they do not know that there are innumerable elite armaments like this one in the Eastern Sea region. There are even many people who intentionally paint an unclear map on an ordinary elite armament in use, that to raise the starting price. But in reality, they are just swindling. It can't be helped. In this world, there will always be people like them who like to daydream and do things that are penny wise but pound foolish, since they themselves are willing to do such a foolish thing by betting on this fan. So really, who can it be blamed on? After hearing Shentu Jiang call out that number, bursts of exclamations rang out instantly from the crowd. Some people even started to criticize Shentu Jiang's action. And also at that moment, Shentu Jiang came to a realization. He finally knew why no one fought over an elite armament that possibly held some amazing opportunity. So it seemed like those things were used to trick people in the Eastern Sea region. However, he was not a simple person. After being aware of the turn of events, he did not show any panic. Rather, he acted out a proud and very cool expression, looked towards Chu Feng, and even sent a provocative gesture at him. He was implying that Chu Feng was a poor bastard, unworthy to match his price. He wanted to use that to enrage Chu Feng so he would continue bid, upon which he would back out with everything. But how would Chu Feng not see through his little tricks? He did not even give Shentu Jiang a glance, and continued to chat and laugh with Su Ro and Su Mei, no longer bidding. Damn your ancestor. At that instant, the corners of Shentu Jiang's mouth twitched, and he couldn't help cursing at the bottom of his heart, because he knew that he was played by Chu Feng. That guy clearly had no plans to buy the elite armament, and intentionally raised the price to force him into a trap. Is there any higher price than 10,000 heaven beads? 10,000 going for once, 10,000 going for twice, 10,000 going for thrice. Asterisk dong asterisk, this elite armament treasure fan belongs to that young knight. The sound of the bell settled, making Shentu Jiang's face gloom completely, because he knew that he wasted 10,000 heaven beads on an ordinary elite armament. His foolishness with money this time truly went far, especially as he saw Chu Feng and the others' applause and their pleased expressions at his misfortune. He grinded his teeth in fury, yet he could say nothing. He could only forcefully endure it and silently take such a deficit. Okay. Of the items before, some have extraordinary origins, some have exquisite workmanship, but no matter what, they were all treasures created either by cultivators or world spiritists. Next up, we will auction some oddities not made by humans, but formed by nature. The elder clapped, then the two beautiful females pushed the auctioning cart up again. After tearing the cloth away, it was an object the same size as a watermelon, yet was like cotton and emitted faint radiance. It was a natural oddity that contained dense heaven power. After that treasure appeared, almost everyone's eyes lit up, intrigued. They did so because it was a supreme cultivation treasure. When cultivated, it was treasure many times more useful than heaven beads. It could be said to be a holy artifact used to make breakthroughs for heaven realm experts. This natural oddity is called firefly silk. The heaven power it contains is comparable to 10,000 heaven beads, but it can be very easily absorbed. not something heaven beads can compare to. When reaching upon times of breakthroughs, refine it, and you will obtain unimaginable effects. Starting price, 100,000 heaven beads. The auctioning elder loudly said, 100,000 heaven beads, that expensive. Heaven power. At that instant, the auctioning elder was in a predicament. In the auctions, it was forbidden to reveal the identity of the treasure holder. Besides, this was an auction that allowed the seller to set their own starting price, rather than the price being set by the appraisal elders. If it were a normal person, using his status as an auctioning elder, he could, in fact, change the price according to some rules. But all of that was useless, as the seller of the object held a special position. Even he, the auctioning elder, did not dare to change the price without the permission of the seller. Actually, even he knew that the son of magma was an ominous object, and was not even close to being worth the price of 1,000 heaven beads. Logically speaking, he wouldn't even put something like that onto the auctioning stage, because that would do nothing but give rise to displeasure. But he could do nothing as the seller was too obstinate. He simply didn't dare to argue, and could only take it out for auctioning, no questions asked. He even had to set an unreasonably high price to start it off. Elder, I will take this son of magma for 1,000 heaven beads. Just at that moment, Chu Feng spoke. What? There's really someone who's willing to spend 1,000 heaven beads to buy something like this? Chu Feng's words attracted quite a few people's attention. It was because nearly everyone felt that that sort of thing was not worth 1,000 heaven beads. Even if it was rarer, more special, it was absolutely not worth 1,000 heaven beads. My friend, are you sure you want to buy this son of magma? Even the auctioning elder felt rather surprised, because he also knew that the son of magma was not worth 1,000 heaven beads, so he never even had plans to sell it. Elder, I want it. Chu Feng very firmly nodded his head. Okay, if no one gives an even higher price, this son of magma will belong to you, my friend. At that instant, the auctioning elder's face shifted and hurriedly yelled, he's sick, an idiot. He's actually spending such money to buy such a thing. There must be something wrong with his brain. After Chu Feng confirmed it, some whispering insults came from his surroundings, but Chu Feng just faintly smiled at their insults. Perhaps in their eyes, the son of magma was an ominous object, but in Chu Feng's eyes, it was akin to a priceless treasure bought for merely 1,000 heaven beads. No one knew how joyful or how happy he was, but this time he truly picked up a heavenly great deal. 1,000 heaven beads. With that price, it was definitely the cheapest treasure sold in tonight's finale auction stage. But such a low price was viewed as a waste in many people's perspectives. So there was naturally not going to be anyone who fought against Chu Feng for the son of magma. Just like that, the priceless treasure, in Chu Feng's eyes, was easily bought into his hands with the price of 1,000 heaven beads. But in the eyes of outsiders, Chu Feng seemed more like an idiot. Some even felt he was mentally ill. Yet no one knew Chu Feng's current excited emotions. Thank you, Elder. After the conclusion of the auctions, Chu Feng, with 1,000 heaven beads, obtained the son of magma, the oddity that came from deep underground. Looking at the fiery red infant doll flowing with overwhelming power in his hands, Chu Feng's heart really was incomparably excited. After grasping it in his hands, he believed more and more that the son of magma would help his cultivation grow, and there was absolutely no problem in making a breakthrough. After all, back then in the imperial tomb, a lot of heaven power was already accumulated in his body. Honestly speaking, they are correct. The son of magma is an inauspicious object. Are you truly going to collect it? Seeing such a joyful appearance from Chu Feng, the auctioning elder, as if he discovered kindness, reminded Chu Feng. Don't worry, Elder. Of course I know about the son of magma, so I am certainly not buying it for a collection. If you must ask what I am planning to do with this, it can be understood as me preparing to thoroughly destroy it. Chu Feng smilingly said, You're a world spiritist. Hearing those words, a hint of astonishment flashed into the elder's eyes, and a hint of surprise couldn't help being within the gaze he looked at Chu Feng with. The power that the son of magma contained was extremely horrifying. Unless it was a martial king, there was no one who could truly destroy it. The only method of destroying it was for a world spiritist to build a sealing formation and seal the son of magma. They call it destroy, but in reality it was only sealing. So that was why the elder felt that Chu Feng was a world spiritist. Otherwise, his cultivation did not allow him to have the methods to destroy the son of magma. And being a world spiritist, no matter where, was an excellent occupation. Given identical cultivation, they would always be a level higher than others, and make others treat them with an extra bit of respect. I am indeed a world spiritist. Chu Feng smiled, but since Su Ru and the others were waiting for him, and moreover, there were still many people currently waiting to exchange their goods, Chu Feng only spoke a few courtesy words to that elder before turning around and leaving. I keep on feeling something off about this little boy. Judging by his age, he should be afraid when he sees the son of magma, yet he was very excited. Does he really know about this son of magma? Gazing upon Chu Feng's departing back, the auctioning elder muttered to himself, "Did someone buy it?" But shortly after Chu Feng left, a hoarse old man's voice suddenly resounded behind that elder. Turning his head back to look, the auctioning elder's initially unperturbed complexion turned immediately tense. He quickly bowed and respectfully said, "I pay my respects to Lord Taiko." The person who currently appeared in front of him was an aged man. Although his face was full of wrinkles, his head was full of black hair. He wore the clothing of a Four Seas Academy instructor, but he was extremely disheveled. Most importantly, he held a cane. He had only a single leg. "We pay our respects to Lord Taiko." At that instant, everyone at that location in the Four Seas Academy, no matter if it were elders or disciples or instructors, all of them saluted respectfully, fear emerging onto their faces, because that person was definitely one of the strongest characters in the Four Seas Academy. He was the leader of the 10 divine instructors, the strongest divine instructor who could easily defeat the 9 others with a single hand, Taiko. "I'm asking you, have you sold it?" Instructor Taiko's expression was chilly. The scar at the corner of his eye made him seem even more frightening. Looking at it, the auctioning elder was terrified endlessly. His heart was uneasy, so he dared not to hesitate any longer and quickly reported, "My lord, it has already been sold." "Oh." Hearing those words, Taiko's cold expression changed faintly, then he asked, "There's really someone who bought my son of magma with 1,000 heaven beads?" "Yes, my lord." "Who bought it?" "It's him, a young man named Chu Feng." The auctioning elder hurriedly flipped through the auctioning bills and records, then gave the one to Taiko. He's not a disciple of the Four Seas Academy, nor has he registered to enter the Four Seas Academy." Taiko's eyes lit up when he saw Chu Feng's information. "Yes, that young man is different from the others. He somehow feels a bit special." The auctioning elder said, "Haha, interesting. This Chu Feng is rather interesting." At that instant, what no one expected was that the usually cold Taiko brimmed with smiles on his face, then waved his sleeves and drifted away. Only after he left did the people at that place breathe a sigh of relief, as if they released some heavy burden. Taiko's position was really too high. His strength was very frightening as well, and he was an abnormality in the Four Seas Academy. Other than the head and several manager elders, not a single other person did not fear him. Chu Feng and the others, however, did not know about the scene in the auction. Through the power of teleportation arrays, they arrived at Yuha's land. Yuha's place definitely counted as small when compared to the other disciples of the Four Seas Academy, but with a glance, there was still a small mountain and a small lake. The scenery was quite nice, especially the rows of structures. They actually all belonged to Yuha himself, and from that, it could be seen that the treatment the disciples of the Four Seas Academy received was truly very good. In order to welcome Chu Feng and the others, Yuha even specially prepared a lavish banquet. Under the night sky, they drank wine and conversed. "Today's moon is so round, so big, and so beautiful." Sume normally did not touch any wine, but today, she wanted to drink nothing but wine. She who had no resistance to alcohol, flushed like a red apple. Her speaking voice was very coquettish, very alluring. "Little May, you can't handle wine, so don't drink that much. If you drink too much, you will feel very bad." Su Ro urged on the side. "Sister, you're the one saying that. Aren't you also drinking wine? Are you more tolerant than me? Ever since I was young, this is the first time that I've seen you drink wine." Su Mei's mouth smelt like alcohol as she giggled and said, "I?" Su Ro was asked to speechlessness by Su Mei and didn't know how to reply. "The two of you drink less. I don't usually see either of you drink wine, so what's with you two today?" Chu Feng smiled and advised on the side, "HMPH." But after Chu Feng spoke, what he got instead were two glares by the two sisters. That made Chu Feng completely befuddled and a bit embarrassed. "Ho, there's nothing wrong with drinking some wine because today is the annual. It is a day very rare to come by." Seeing Chu Feng's slight embarrassment, Yuha hurriedly spoke to diffuse the tension. "Moon Festival. What festival is that?" Su Mei blinked her hazy big eyes and asked, intrigued. "Have you discovered that tonight's moon is particularly big, particularly round, and particularly bright?" Yuha lightly smiled, replying with a question instead. Yeah, tonight's moon is so beautiful. I have never seen such a beautiful moon." Su Mei pursed her little lips, nodding in agreement. "Heh, the moon is not normally this beautiful. Every year it happens only once. And to this phenomenon, there are many types of explanations. However, in the Eastern Sea region, the most widespread is a legend." Yuha said, "Legend? What legend? Senior Yuha, quickly tell me." Su Mei curiously asked. "The legends say in ancient times, only the sun existed and there was no moon. There were also no stars that filled the sky. So during the day, the sun lit up the sky brightly. But when nighttime came, it was pitch black, to the point where one could not see their fingers if they stretched out their arm. In ancient times, there was a pair of lovers. Both were cultivators. They were friends from a young age, and there was nothing they didn't talk about. They had a very strong relationship. The male even had exceptional talent and was a very rare cultivation genius. In the cultivation world, he kept on making breakthroughs and soared powerfully. But nothing could be done regarding the female's ordinary aptitude, so she was slowly left behind, very far by the male. However, their feelings did not fade away because of their distance in cultivation. Rather, they became stronger and stronger and made those next to them very admirative. However, with the flow of time, both of them got older and older. Although, with special medicine, the female could always keep her young, beautiful appearance, the limit of her life gradually approached. The male was aware of that and started to madly think of methods to save the female. He cared not of her complexion, but absolutely he could not lose her. Finally, he thought of a way. It was to make himself stronger, so strong that he could prolong the female's life. And with his hard work, he finally stepped into an extremely outstanding realm. He lacked only one step before he entered a realm that none had entered before. It was a realm that was going to shock the world. In order to successfully take that single step, he painstakingly cultivated in isolation. When he exited his seclusion, the world quivered. He gained the power to rule the world and was already invincible. Everything was within his grasp. But what he never, ever would have thought was that his single closed-door cultivation lasted for several hundred years. His lover existed no longer. Eerie white bones were all that remained. The man lost all spirit. He grasped the power to rule the entire world, became a god in the eyes of all the living. But he could do nothing to save the person he loved the most. He cried for an entire day. When the night fell and he saw the pitch-black world, only then did he think of some words his lover said to him before. She said she disliked the night because if there were no flames, she could not see his face. She said, how great would it be if the night also had the sun? She could then at any time see his complexion. The man loved her too much. He loved her so much that without her, he lost any significance in living, even though he had an uncountable number of years left in his life and received the world's adoration. All of that was inferior to the female's company. Since he already lost any thoughts of surviving, since he already decided to accompany the female's death, he chose to complete her wish before his death, and at the same time made all lovers complete. He decided to bring light into the night. So, he burnt his own body as the sacrificial price, he collected many natural oddities, and he laid a formation that covered the entire sky. It condensed above the 9 heavens, and finally he created an object. That object would appear during the nighttime to light up the world. Moreover, when the man was forming such a thing, he named it with his final breath, Moon, the name of his lover. It's because of Moon that there is light in the night. So, in remembrance of Moon, people named the day that the moon was born on as the Moon Festival, and today is that day. Although it is only a legend, it is widespread and has been passed down for generations. Furthermore, a special meaning was bestowed upon the moon. It is to cherish the ones close to you. Yuha detailedly narrated, "Haha, nonsense, what is the moon? There is only one in this world. And no matter how much stronger a cultivator is, they cannot be so strong to make their body into a moon. It is merely a legend. How can it possibly be true?" At that instant, Jiang Wusheng laughed loudly, feeling that it was rubbish. That's right. How can the moon be created by a human? That's too nonsensical. Come, 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 drink, drink, drink. Zhang Tianyi also spoke in contempt. Cherish those close to you, huh? However, the joke-like legend in the male's eyes stirred up special thoughts from the females. Su Ro and Su Mei couldn't help casting their gazes full of love towards Chu Feng, who was drinking with Jiang Wusheng and Zhang Tianyi. There was no one who knew what they were thinking. After the banquet, Chu Feng impatiently returned to his own room and took out the Son of Magma, wanting to refine it. After all, he currently had heavy responsibilities, so the earlier he raised his strength the better. Asterisk dong dong dong, dong 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 asterisk. But just as Chu Feng prepared to take out the Son of Magma, his doors were knocked. Through spirit power, Chu Feng knew that the one who came was Su Mei. "Little Mei, we separated just now and you're already missing me." Chu Feng opened the doors and discovered that indeed, Su Mei stood outside. So he couldn't help teasing her. "Yeah, I miss you." However, surprisingly for Chu Feng, Su Mei, who would usually be affected by his teases, not only wasn't affected in the slightest. She instead leaped and pounced into Chu Feng's embrace. That wasn't even anything. After Su Mei entered the room, she closed the doors and actually, while hugging Chu Feng, shoved Chu Feng further into the room and pushed him onto the bed. "Little Mei, you." When facing Su Mei, who acted completely differently than usual, Chu Feng was a bit lost on what to do. Although Su Mei was often cheerful, lively, and was quite intimate with Chu Feng, she acted appropriately. For example, the thing between a man and a woman, or sleeping in the same bed. Those were forbidden behaviors, yet today, she seemed to be doing taboo actions. "Tonight, I want to sleep together with you." Su Mei slowly crawled onto Chu Feng's body and again put her little beautiful face up to Chu Feng's face, and with a sweet and warm and delicate voice, spoke to Chu Feng. Asterisk gulp asterisk. At that instant, Chu Feng fiercely swallowed some spittle because Su Mei in front of his eyes was too enchanting. Under her eyelashes, a pair of big, walnut-sized eyes emanated haziness. On her pretty face, a layer of redness permeated. It was quite bewitching, especially as Chu Feng shifted his gaze downwards and scanned over her chest. He actually saw Snow White. The originally firm but soft spherical objects, when pressed against his chest, already became ovally, but gazing from the center, he could still see a V-shaped ravine. The size of that was not to be underestimated, and one could simply not see the bottom. At that instant, Chu Feng couldn't help inhaling a breath of cool air. He said hiddenly in his heart, "Little Mei has grown. She was already impressive before, and now she is even bigger. She's simply comparable to her elder sister." Chu Feng was a man, and in a situation like that, he naturally had his reactions. Under his stomach, a pillar to the heavens arose, and it was quite imposing. At first, Chu Feng even felt a bit of shame. After all, Su Mei was pressed on his body, so she could certainly clearly feel his change. But what he did not expect was that Su Mei truly seemed to be another person. She clearly sensed it, but she did not avoid it. Not only did she allow Chu Feng to stare at herself, there was even a hint of a blush on her face. She opened her pink lips and moved in to kiss Chu Feng. "Little Mei, what are you doing?" Yet, Chu Feng subconsciously evaded Su Mei's fragrant kiss because he promised Su Ro that he would not do the thing between a man and a woman with Su Mei before marriage. But right in front of his eyes, Su Mei's behavior was clearly off. If that continued, he would lose control over himself. At that time, he would commit an offense. He did not want to do the thing he promised not to do. "Nothing. I just like you. I really, really like you. I want to give you my everything and to only you." As Su Mei spoke, she suddenly stood and in front of Chu Feng, took off her pink long skirt. At that instant, Chu Feng instinctively gasped. His eyes roundly widened and almost shot out 2 pillars of blood from his nose, because, at that very instant, what appeared in front of him was doubtlessly a perfect body, white and delicate skin, protruding fronts and behinds, and in addition to Su Mei's unique sweet face and her blurry eye expression because of alcohol, it was simply irresistible by any man. "Chu Feng, I not only like you, I love you. I am willing to do anything for you, and I am willing to give you everything. I will do anything you request me to do. I just can't lose you. I am yours and only yours. I can give you anything." Suddenly, Su Mei leaped into his embrace again, causing Chu Feng to subconsciously hold her. But when he touched Su Mei again, the feeling he got from his hands was completely different. Without the separation of clothing, Chu Feng's palm truly touched Su Mei's skin. The feeling of smoothness, warmth, and also some elasticity was simply like a reignition of fire. It made the flames in Chu Feng's heart thoroughly burn, and it filled his entire body. Chu Feng spun around and pressed his body onto Su Mei. He widened his mouth and started to madly suck Su Mei's body, as if he wanted to put all of Su Mei into his mouth. At the same time, his hands unrestrainedly went around everywhere. On Su Mei's perfect body, he rubbed and scratched, acting very wildly. When Chu Feng was so rough, Su Mei did not know if it hurt or not, so she involuntarily moaned. But Su Mei's soft voice was like adding oil on fire, making Chu Feng even wilder. He very barbarously ripped off his clothes and prepared to make some love with the beauty beneath him. "Chu Feng, what are you doing?" But just at that moment, a fierce voice rang out suddenly behind Chu Feng. It made both Su Mei and Chu Feng shocked. Looking towards the origin of the voice, their complexions couldn't help changing further. It was because at present, Su Ro appeared within the house. She stood 10 meters away from the bed, looking at Chu Feng and Su Mei with both a stunned and horrified expression. At that moment, it was as though Chu Feng and Su Mei did some vile thing as they hurriedly, in panic, wore their respective clothes, and during that period of time, Su Ro stood in front of the bed with the same expression. "Chu Feng, do you remember what you promised me earlier? How can you do this?" After waiting for Su Mei to wear her long skirt, Su Ro interrogated with an extremely strict tone. "Sister, this isn't Chu Feng's fault, But before letting Chu Feng speak, Su Mei rushed to explain. "Little Mei, leave, return to your room. I have something I want to talk to Chu Feng alone." But before letting Su Mei finish speaking, Su Ro gestured her to leave. Glancing at her elder sister, then looking at Chu Feng, Su Mei gnashed her teeth, pursed her lips, but ultimately left with a shameful expression. You don't need to say anything. I know that little Mei went to find you. I'm her elder sister. How can I not understand her? She loves you greatly. She wants to let you know how much she loves you. So she wished to give her everything to you before you leave. Chu Feng, I know your feelings are sincere to both me and little Mei, but please understand, I still hope you two can wait until after the marriage before doing this sort of thing. After all, having something to look forward to when you return is better than having nothing." Chu Feng initially wanted to say something, but Su Ro had a know-it-all appearance. Moreover, as she spoke, she walked up to Chu Feng and did something that made Chu Feng stupefied. She actually slowly loosened her skirt in front of Chu Feng and removed it. At that instant, Su Ro completely exhibited her mature and well-developed, hot and fair body in front of Chu Feng. and even leaped into Chu Feng's embrace. "Little Ru you are." Chu Feng panicked a bit. He understood Su Rou's words, but did not understand why Su Rou would suddenly do all that because, in his perspective, although Su Rou was already owned by him, she was still a bit against doing the thing between a man and a woman. "Chu Feng, little Mei loves you, but I also love you. Little Mei can give anything to you, and I similarly can give anything to you. Chu Feng, please forgive me. Forgive my stubbornness. I only have one sister, little Mei, so I hope you can love her more than you love me. Just wait a bit longer. Little Mei is sooner or later yours. We sisters are yours. But before that, she can't do it with you. So let me take her place." Su Rou's gentle tone kept on lingering next to Chu Feng's ears, and her slender hands tore away the clothes Chu Feng wore just now, and started to trace along Chu Feng's heated body. In that situation, no man could continue enduring. Besides, Chu Feng was an impatient, real man. So, his thing that he just controlled exploded again. Ignoring all, he pressed Su Rou underneath. However, this time, Chu Feng learned his lesson. Before doing the deed, he laid a powerful spirit formation, sealing the entire house, preventing anyone from interrupting his good time. Under the bright round moon, in the room that overflowed with love, one manly and one soft body interweaved, creating an enviable, beautiful scene. The next morning, when Chu Feng reawakened, he discovered that Su Rou was there no more, but next to the bed. She left behind some bodily fragrance, letting him know that Su Rou did indeed accompany him for a night. When he walked out of the room and saw Su Rou and Su Mei again, he discovered the sisters were holding each other's hands and smiling while chatting. Their serene appearances made it look as if nothing happened last night at all. It made the piece of worry in Chu Feng's heart disappear like a sliver of smoke. He once again felt how strong the two sisters felt about one another, as if nothing could make conflicts arise between them. "How was it? Did you sleep comfortably last night?" After Su Mei saw Chu Feng with her little hands behind her back, she walked up to Chu Feng and asked naughtily next to his ear, You little girl." There was guilt in his heart, so he was a bit embarrassed. He couldn't avoid casting his gaze towards the nearby Su Rou, but discovered she only curled up her red lips and beautifully smiled, then turned her head away and no longer paid attention to Chu Feng. At that instant, Chu Feng could really do absolutely nothing. He even thought that Su Rou told Su Mei what they did last night, or somehow Su Mei learned about what he and Su Rou did. But when Su Mei's red lips quivered and a mental message was projected into his ears, Chu Feng was instantly speechless. "Next time, find a secretive place, and I will give myself to you then. But be careful, we can't be discovered by my sister, or else she will definitely not forgive me, Tilda." Just like that. On the special day of the Moon Festival, though Chu Feng was unable to be complete with Su Mei, he shared a bed with Su Rou once again. Although the process in which that happened made Chu Feng a bit lost, he once again experienced how much the sisters loved him. The reason why they acted like that was because they were loath to separate with him. After all, from today on, Chu Feng was going to leave the Four Seas Academy and step onto an uncertain trek. This day was also the final day of the Four Seas Academy's disciple examination. The disciples who passed the examination before already had their respective instructors and were currently entering the Four Seas Academy. Of those people, the ones most focused upon were, of course, Su Rou and Su Mei. Their instructors were divine instructors. They really gave rise to envy. But other than Su Rou and Su Mei, there were also many people who were admired, and those included Zhang Tianyi and Jiang Wushang. They had already gained the qualifications to enter the Four Seas Academy, and also gained the chance to become disciples of divine instructors. That chance was currently grasped within their own hands, whether they could successfully become disciple of divine instructors, and from then on rise greatly in position, depended on their own abilities. Those who fought to become disciples of divine instructors were all from the young generation. Their strengths were not weak, and they were all geniuses. However, in Chu Feng's eyes, not a single one could defeat him. Looking at those in the young generation, the ones with the highest strengths were only in the 6th level of the heaven realm, And if Chu Feng used the power of his lightning, his cultivation would also enter the 6th level of the heaven realm. In the same level, who could defeat Chu Feng? At least up until now, only Ziling could. In reality, not only Chu Feng, even Jiang Wushang and Zhang Tianyi didn't have too much pressure. Not only did they destroy all the obstructions in the examination, they even defeated all their opponents, and at the end, became disciples of divine instructors, genius disciples who would be gazed upon by many. In the process, they, with the cultivation of the 3rd level of the heaven realm, fiercely beat up Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai, who were both in the 4th level of the heaven realm. Those 2 battles were one of the few, out of the many, fights that made people exclaim in admiration. Chu Feng also felt happy for Su Rou, Su Mei, Zhang Tianyi, and Jiang Wushang, when they were stared at by countless admirative and praiseful gazes, as they become disciples of their respective divine instructors, and also became disciples who were the most excellent and had the most potential in the 4 Seas Academy. It at least meant that they weren't only geniuses in the continent of the 9 provinces. Even in the Eastern Sea region, they similarly could make a standing for themselves. After Jiang Wushang and Zhang Tianyi successfully became disciples of divine instructors, Chu Feng decided to leave on the exact same day, because on this day, those who weren't able to enter the 4 Seas Academy had to leave. But when leaving, Chu Feng didn't let them send him off because he didn't want to leave on a sad note. He wanted to keep a cheerful heart before stepping onto his next journey. And just as he arrived in front of the teleportation array, Chu Feng recognized 2 familiar figures. It was Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai, currently bestowed by Zhang Tianyi and Jiang Wushang. Their noses were blue and their faces swollen. As they walked in the crowds of people, many whispers arose. It was extremely shameful. Seeing their lips moving slightly, yet no sound was made, Chu Feng knew that they were sending mental messages. So Chu Feng spread out his spirit power, and with its immense strength, caught strands of their voices and with that, listened into their mental conversation. God damn, we were actually defeated by those 2 guys in the 3rd level of the heaven realm. This time we've truly lost a lot of face. Sigh. If Big Brother Shentu Long were here, he could definitely fiercely give those 2 a lesson. Of course, if he was here, out of this year's new disciples, he would have definitely become the most well-known person. When would it even be their turn to take the spotlight? But why has he still not arrived yet? Didn't we say he was going to enter the 4 Seas Academy as well? What the hell is he doing? Who knows? But I'm sure Big Brother Shentu Long must have his own plans. Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai, indeed, were complaining about everything because of their defeat in battle. Moreover, from their words, Chu Feng also confirmed that they were indeed in the same group as Shentu Jiang. Oh, who's this? Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai, right? What happened? I haven't seen you for only a day, yet your heads have become pig heads. Ah, I know. You must have taken quite a few blows from today's fight, right? Who was it from? It wouldn't be from Zhang Tianyi and Jiang Wushang, right? This is truly embarrassing, you guys. Last night, you even put the word out there and said you were going to beat up Zhang Tianyi and Jiang Wushang. How come today, when you really go fight, you're beaten to this state, so you only know how to brag and nothing else? After eavesdropping on their mental conversation, Chu Feng intentionally walked up to them and jeered loudly, as if wishing the entire world could hear him. The 2 already had stomachs full of anger, so when they were made fun of by Chu Feng, their faces immediately turned livid, and were so furious that their veins popped out. HMPH. But the 2 of them did not say much, and turned around with a cold snort because they were, indeed, defeated. It was something that everyone knew. If they continued defending themselves or hurling insults, they would get nothing but more ridicule. So they could only endure. Ah, don't leave. Come chat for a bit longer. What? You can't take a few more words. Don't you know what wise advice goes against the ear means? Trash. If I were you too, I would have burrowed myself into some hole in the wall. PFS, some dogbutt Shentu dynasty. So it's a place specialized for raising up garbage. Although the 2 of them already turned around, Chu Feng did not let them go easily. His insults were extremely loud, and only after the two of them disappeared from his line of sight did Chu Feng smile lightly, as if some evil plot succeeded. Quickly after, relying on teleportation arrays, Chu Feng left the Four Seas Academy. However, he found out that two people were secretly following him. As for who those two were, Chu Feng knew even with his eyes shut. They were definitely Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai. The two of them were already displeased at Chu Feng, and just now, he mocked them in such a way as well. How could they truly endure that? This time, by following him, they naturally aimed to give Chu Feng a lesson. Little did they know that the humiliation before was merely a scheme set up by Chu Feng. They even thought they could fiercely beat Chu Feng up, but were ignorant to the fact that they were already led onto a road of death. Within the Four Seas Academy, arbitrary fighting was forbidden, and even more so, arbitrary murder was forbidden. So, if Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai wished to take care of Chu Feng, they had to follow him all the way until he left the territory of the Four Seas Academy before they could do anything to him. But Chu Feng was not as easy to handle as they had thought. After he left the grounds of the Four Seas Academy, Chu Feng used the bodily martial skill, the dragon traveling through 9 heavens, for quicker movement. Although the speed of the dragon traveling through 9 heavens was not comparable to the Azure Dragon dashing technique, it was still very fast. It forced Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai to use everything they had, yet they could still not catch up to Chu Feng. Although the two of them could not catch up, they weren't left behind by him either. They advanced forward with the same level of speed. At first, the two of them even thought that Chu Feng discovered them, but they found out in no point in time was he anxious. And moreover, he even sang as he traveled. How was that leisure attitude even close to preparing for the arrival of an enemy? So the two brothers, Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai, determined that Chu Feng had yet to discover them. But Chu Feng's method of movement was too aberrant. Not only was his speed quick when he moved, he didn't even sleep or rest, didn't eat or drink, and when he moved, he continued non-stop for several days. But naturally, Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai, who hated Chu Feng and the others down to the bone, and could only vent their anger by killing Chu Feng, were not willing to give up so easily. So they kept on following him. Only after entering the grounds of the luxurious tavern did they discover that traces of Chu Feng disappeared. Damn it, where did that brat go? How come he suddenly disappeared? Shentu Jiang stood above the luxurious tavern and looked down, yet could not see even Chu Feng's shadow. He couldn't help panicking because more and more he felt that they were possibly being toyed around by Chu Feng. This is quite familiar. Heavens, this place. Isn't this place that tavern we rested in when we first came to the Eastern Sea region? After Shentu Hai detailedly observed the things below, he suddenly became shocked. That's true. At that time, there was still people circulating in this place, and it was even very prosperous. Why has it been destroyed to this state? Something must have happened here. Hearing Shentu Hai's words, Shentu Jiang discovered as well that indeed, it was the tavern they had took a rest in before. Asterisk gulu 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 asterisk, but as they were baffled, from the center of the tavern, burst of strange sounds rang out. Some sound is coming from over there, let's quickly go check it out. Hearing those sounds, Shentu Jiang's and Shentu Hai's expression changed. They even thought that they had found Chu Feng, speedily flying towards the direction of the sound. What is this? But when the two flew over and saw the object that the noise came from, they hurried, covered their mouths and noses, almost vomiting, because under them there was a churning pit of excrement. Currently, bubbles kept on forming from the excrement, and gulu-gulu sounds came from it as well. At the same time, a revolting stench permeated that land. Asterisk boom asterisk, but abruptly, within the pit of excrement, an explosion burst out. At the same time, like a volcano erupting, excrement soared into the sky. Damn! Seeing the yellow-colored object shooting straight towards them, Shentu Jiang's and Shentu Hai's faces greened. They quickly used their strongest bodily martial skills and dodged to the side. Only by doing that did they avoid being tainted by the poop. "Haha, I've finally gotten out." But just as the two of them celebrated their successful evasion of such a catastrophe, an elated voice suddenly rang out in the sky full of excrement. Looking towards the origin of the voice, Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai were immediately dumbstruck and even rubbed their eyes quickly, because they did not dare to believe the scene happening in front of their eyes. Because at that very instant, they recognized the person who was standing in the air and insanely laughing. He was the #1 genius of the Shentu dynasty, Shentu Long. "Big brother Shentu Long, it's really you." With inconceivable emotions, Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai yelled out at the same time. "Little Jiang, little Hai, what are you two doing here?" Seeing Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai, Shentu Long's expression shifted, feeling very surprised. "Big brother, that's something that we should ask you. Why didn't you participate in the Four Seas Academy's examination, and why were you there?" Shentu Jiang pointed at the pit of excrement underneath, replying to a question with a question. It's a long story, but damn, I truly stumbled upon bad luck." Hearing Shentu Jiang ask about it, Shentu Long didn't hide anything and roughly outlined what happened to him. So something like that happened. And after knowing that Shentu Long was sealed into the pit of excrement by a person even younger than him, Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai were both astounded, feeling quite a bit of disbelief. After all, they understood Shentu Long's strength. He was the #1 genius in the several hundred years of Shentu dynasty history. That appellation was absolutely not falsely gained, and they even felt that if Shentu Long had participated in the Four Seas Academy's examination, he would have become the most well-known person there. Perhaps he would have even become the strongest person in the examination. Yet at present, someone's strength was actually above Shentu Long's, while that person was younger than him. How could they not be astounded? That's right, little Jiang, little Hai, at this time, the Four Seas Academy's examination should have finished right. Why aren't you waiting inside the academy and have come to this place? Shentu Long curiously asked. Don't mention that. We originally came here chasing after a brat, but who would have thought after arriving at this place, he disappeared? Shentu Jiang said with a face packed with anger. The more he thought about himself and Shentu Hai, the more they felt that they might have been tricked. Little Jiang, what exactly happened? Quickly tell me. Seeing their fury, Shentu Long knew that his two brothers might have been wronged. Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai didn't conceal anything either. They roughly narrated the events that had occurred to Shentu Long. This is truly preposterous. There's actually someone who dares to bully my brothers like that. Indeed, after knowing about it, Shentu Long gritted his teeth with overflowing anger, then patted his chest and guaranteed, Little Jiang, little Hai, don't worry. From what you've said, he shouldn't have run too far. Right now, I will help you two search for him. With my strength, he shouldn't even think of escaping from my palm. That's great. Big brother, if it's you, not to mention him. Even those few in the Four Seas Academy will not end up well. At that instant, Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai acted as if they had found their backbone. Their faces were full of happiness and excitement. No need to look for me. I'm here. But just at that time, a loud and clear voice suddenly exploded in the air. Soon after, an imposing dragon's roar suddenly resonated as well. At that instant, they saw wind blowing everywhere in the sky. The clouds shifted around, and a huge azure-colored dragon with powerful might appeared in the sky. And on that huge azure dragon's head, there stood a person. That person was none other than Chu Feng. Chu Feng, you actually dare to appear in front of us. Big brother, it's him. He's the person who humiliated the two of us publicly. Today, you must lend a hand to us to give this brat a good lesson. When they saw Chu Feng, Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai were endlessly ecstatic. But when they cast their gazes at Shentu Long, awaiting his attack to torture Chu Feng for a good while, their faces couldn't help changing, and with extremely nervous tones they shouted simultaneously, Big brother, what's wrong with you? Presently, Shentu Long no longer had his former arrogance. His face was full of terror. He, quivering, held up his hand, pointed at Chu Feng, who stood atop the Azure Dragon in the sky, then asked Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai, You two, the person you two were chasing wouldn't be him, would it? It is him, big brother. Is there a problem? Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai were not idiots, so when they saw Shentu Long's expression, they knew some things must have happened. Damn it. The person who sealed me in this place is him. The person we were talking about are the same. Shentu Long spoke those words with a voice of hatred but also helplessness. What? The person who defeated you was him. How is that possible? He's only in the 3rd level of the heaven realm. After hearing Shentu Long's words, Shentu Jiang's and Shentu Hai's complexion changed. They couldn't help looking at Chu Feng again, examining him carefully. Although Chu Feng's current atmosphere was indeed extraordinary, in their eyes, it should still be impossible for him to defeat Shentu Long. There's no time for any explanations. Run. I will hold him off for you. Do not look back and scram. The farther you go, the better. Shentu Long suddenly howled, and while doing that, he grabbed Shentu Jiang's and Shentu Hai's shoulders and flung his arms with power that could uproot a mountain. Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai, like arrows, shot towards the distant sky. Brat, you dare to lock me inside the pit of excrement and forcefully use such waste to prolong my life. I have never received such humiliation in my life, and even if I cannot defeat you, I will not stop fighting until one of us dies. The current Shentu Long was completely different from the past. His gaze was like a torch. His bloodlust overflowed. He, who embraced a determined heart to die, had not the slightest bit of fear. He only had thoughts to delay Chu Feng. Bang finally, he stepped forward. Boundless aura exploded from the ground as he rushed towards the clouds, heading straight for Chu Feng. Holding nothing back, he released the aura of the 5th level of the heaven realm. It surged forward, and even the air twisted when it passed by. The might it had was not weak at all, but in Chu Feng's eyes, no matter what Shentu Long did, he would never be able to defeat him. He was like an ant in front of him. A raise of a hand or foot could crush him. So a hint of a smile formed, and he said, "There's quite the bond you have between you and your brothers, and because of that, I won't touch your Shentu dynasty, but you 3 brothers must die. This is the reasonable price you pay for your own actions." Immediately after he finished speaking, lightning surged within his eyes, and the heaven power within his body started to quickly change as well, causing his aura to instantly rise rapidly. 4th level, 5th level, 6th level. In merely an instant, Chu Feng's aura rose from the 3rd level of the heaven realm to the 6th level of the heaven realm. Boom after his aura finished adjusting itself, Chu Feng wasted no breath saying anything. He opened his 5 fingers slightly. He leveled his arm slightly and very easily, casually, palmed towards Shentu Long, who was dashing straight at him. The earth and heavens were shocked by that palming. The might it contained was strong. It was as powerful as a dragon. Boom rumble with such a simple palm. Chu Feng overwhelmed Shentu Long's aura by several times. At that instant, explosions burst out in the sky. The winds and clouds were altered and the world trembled, as if everything went into chaos. Looking at the roiling heaven power coming towards him, Shentu Long's complexion distorted greatly as well. Although he had a very grand demeanor before, and even tossed away any thoughts of living, when he truly saw Chu Feng's strength and truly faced death, he still feared. But this time, Chu Feng really did not give him any chances of survival. So one saw only see the heaven power streak across the sky, and the places it passed were all torn into pieces. As for Shentu Long, he was the same. With a Puchai, the #1 genius of the Shentu dynasty, a cultivation expert in the 5th level of the heaven realm, became a pool of blood within the turbulence of heaven power. He could not even form a consciousness. Heavens, is he still human? How can he be that terrifying? He is simply like a demon. In the distant sky there stood 2 people. They were precisely Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai. They had not left yet, because they did not believe that Chu Feng could kill Shentu Long. But at that instant they did. Chu Feng, who they didn't even put into their eyes, was the most terrifying out of the 5-man group. At that instant they were truly afraid. It was impossible for them, who personally saw Chu Feng kill, to be not afraid. Asterisk whoosh asterisk, but just at that moment, Chu Feng, who stood in the faraway sky, turned his head around. He cast his cold gaze at Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai. Crap, he has seen us. Run, run. Their hearts immediately wavered when they met Chu Feng's eyes. Their legs went limp, as if their blood was frozen. That kind of fear made them crawl back up while in the sky, and they almost fell down. Only after struggling for a good while could they stabilize their bodies. Asterisk swish asterisk, but just as they prepared to use their bodily martial skills and escape with all they had, a burst of gale whooshed past them from behind. An enormous monster had appeared in front of them. That enormous monster had shining green scales, and mist surrounded it. It was a huge Azure Dragon, and on the head of the Azure Dragon, Chu Feng was chillingly staring at them. Though it lacked strong killing intent, his icy gaze was still frightening. Asterisk poof asterisk, big brother Chu Feng, we were wrong. We had eyes but couldn't recognize Mount Tai. We shouldn't have been disrespectful to you, so please give us a chance. Shentu Jiang immediately knelt in the air and pleaded. Asterisk bang bang asterisk, Shentu Hai was even fiercer. Not only did he kneel in midair, he first unforgivingly slapped himself 2 times, before speaking painfully with tears and snot. Master Chu Feng, it was my fault, it was my fault. I shouldn't have looked for trouble. I shouldn't have insulted your friends. Please, as a great character, have benevolence. Please be broad-minded with us, and give us a chance to start anew. I'm begging you, have mercy. Chu Feng's emotions did not shift in the slightest when he looked at those two, because when he wished to kill a person, he would not be swayed. So Chu Feng said only one sentence, both of you are less than Shentu Long. Asterisk boom asterisk, immediately after he spoke, his thoughts spun around. Chu Feng did not use heaven power, but spirit formation power. Blue-colored spirit formations became a cage, and from all directions locked the two of them inside. Quickly after, it rapidly shrunk, then with 2 poofs, they were forcibly crushed into pieces, and died very thoroughly. Asterisk whoosh asterisk, he killed them with lightning-like methods. Then Chu Feng spread open his palm slightly. Then 2 faint lights, like meteors going backwards, flew towards his palms from the place they died at. Looking closely, they were 2 cosmos sacs, and those 2 cosmos sac were naturally the remnants of Shentu Jiang and Shentu Hai. Asterisk whoosh asterisk, however, just as he obtained the cosmos sacs, Chu Feng flipped his palm, throwing them into his pocket, then cast his incomparably serious gaze behind him and said, "Quite sensitive spirit power. You've actually detected me after I approached." Just as Chu Feng spoke, a nearby space in the sky twisted. A single-legged old man appeared inside Chu Feng's line of sight and was chuckling while looking at him. "Who are you? Why are you following me?" After seeing that person, Chu Feng couldn't help lightly knitting his brows, because before, he wasn't really able to ascertain whether a person was near him or not. He only felt that something was off, but couldn't confirm if it was really a person. The shout just now was merely a test, so he didn't expect a person to truly come out. Thus, that old man's appearance really did frighten Chu Feng. In addition, not only did the old man in front of him wear clothing of a 4 Seas Academy instructor, he even had unfathomably deep cultivation. And just now, Chu Feng killed 2 disciples from the 4 Seas Academy. All of that made the situation head towards a disaster. You don't need to be afraid. Although I am from the 4 Seas Academy, I won't charge you for any crimes because of 2 useless disciples. Rather, my thoughts are the same as yours. I feel that those 2 disciples should be killed. The single-legged old man seemed to know what Chu Feng was worried about and quickly smiled, explaining, "Who are you? What are you planning by following me?" Chu Feng only determined that his strength was very strong, but could not determine whether he was an enemy or a friend. So he was very cautious towards him. My name is Tai Ko, and I'm a divine instructor of the 4 Seas Academy. I have but one goal for coming here. I feel that you're a genius, so I hope you can become my disciple. If you do, I will do all I can to develop you." Tai Ko was quite straightforward and spoke his intentions directly. "What? You're a divine instructor. You want me as your disciple. And after the old man spoke his words, Chu Feng was shocked. Given his strength, he was indeed qualified to be a divine instructor, and was even a lot stronger than the divine instructors Chu Feng saw before. So, when he stated his name and identity, the first thing he thought of was that the old man in front of his eyes was very possibly the strangest, but most powerful instructor out of the 10 divine instructors. But that person clearly never took any disciples, and clearly Chu Feng wasn't a 4C's Academy disciple. Yet he actually ran over here and said he wanted him as his disciple. What was all that for? It really made Chu Feng a bit speechless and made him very stupefied. When I, Taiko, speak, I am always straightforward. My friend Chu Feng, I just wonder, are you willing to or not? Taiko said with a light smile, and at that instant, Chu Feng felt even more uneasy. Since the old man in front of him knew his name, he seemed to have done a bit of investigation. But Chu Feng still didn't understand why he wanted to take him as a disciple. But regardless if it was real or fake, or if there were other intentions, Chu Feng did not plan to enter the 4C's Academy. So he clasped his hands and politely said, "It is my honor to be able to catch your eyes, Senior Taiko. However, I haven't entered the 4C's Academy. It doesn't seem to be too appropriate to be your disciple given that right. Don't worry, as long as you are willing to be my disciple, you will naturally be a disciple of the 4C's Academy. Rules such as you must pass the examination are only restrictions for ordinary people. You have no need for them." Taiko waved his hand. His attitude towards Chu Feng was very friendly, but Chu Feng truly did not plan to enter the 4C's Academy, so he could only shake his head saying, "Senior Taiko, I am truly sorry. I do not wish to enter the 4C's Academy." Oh! Hearing his words, Taiko's sword-like brows slanted inwards, and he seemed a bit displeased, but that displeasure passed by within a flash. Very soon, he sighed, releasing the tension inside him, and said, "Those who wish to become my disciple are not suitable for me, and those I wish to become my disciple do not find me suitable. Such is fate. Whatever, I capitulate." As he spoke, Taiko turned around and disappeared, but at the same time, a mental message was projected into Chu Feng's ears. "My friend Chu Feng, I will be blind to today's matters, but in the future, if anyone dares to bully you in the Eastern Sea region, you can use my name, Taiko. If there comes a day that you want to become my disciple, I, Taiko, welcome you with open arms." "Thank you, Senior Taiko." Chu Feng quickly saluted and thanked, but he did not receive any response from Taiko. After waiting there for a while, Chu Feng concentrated and used his spirit power to observe his surroundings, but he could not detect any change, so he determined that Taiko truly left. That instructor is really, as the rumors say, extremely odd. Chu Feng was fairly speechless when facing Taiko, but he did leave quite a nice impression behind. Although Taiko's strange nature was a bit queer, at least he seemed to be an honest and broad-minded person. But after experiencing such an event, Chu Feng also became more alert. He wore the transformational mask he got from the 100-faced old man back then, and made the illusion of an ordinarily faced middle-aged man with a large build. Chu Feng decided he would show himself to the public as that man. With that, even if he were to stir up some trouble, it wouldn't affect himself, nor would it affect Jiang Wushang, Zhang Tianyi, and the others. Moreover, Chu Feng gave himself a new name, Wu Qing. As for the reason, it was very simple as well. In order to reach his goal, Chu Feng had to be a heartless one person. After changing his face, Chu Feng set his first destination, the Lover's Terrace. Chiao Shue Fuyan was in the Lover's Terrace. She was the holy daughter of the Burning Heaven Church, and also H. Wang Fu Haoiwei's former lover. So, Chu Feng felt that when H. Wang Fu Haoiwei still held his rationality, he should have said something to Chiao Shue Fuyan. Thus, Chiao Shue Fuyan was likely the only other person who likely knew Chu Feng's ancestry. However, the Eastern Sea region was vast. If he wished to reach the Lover's Terrace, he would have to spend quite a bit of time. Before that, though, Chu Feng needed to raise his cultivation. So he first found a hidden place and prepared to refine the sun of magma. Chu Feng Why not take out the elite armament fan Shentu Jiang obtained from the auction? Perhaps you can discover something. However, just as he found a hidden place and before he started refining, Egi spoke. That fan. On the fan, there is indeed a picture. But it's a bit blurry, and there's no way to determine what is imprinted on it. I can't even be sure if it's a map or not. Chu Feng said, idiot. To normal people, indeed, it would be challenging, but you're different. Don't forget, you're a person who has cultivated the heaven's eyes. With a glance, you can see the essence of something like this. Although you haven't thoroughly grasped the heaven's eyes after all, you have already cultivated it for such a long period of time. The picture on the fan coincidentally serves to test the results of your cultivation. No matter if it's real or fake, as long as you can confirm either, it means that you have grasped the early stage of the heaven's eyes. If you run into a place that conceals strange treasures, you should also see it. Egi said, yeah, how did I forget about it? The heaven's eyes that I cultivated allows me to see things that others cannot. It can also reconstruct incomplete things. After hearing Egi's words, Chu Feng realized it as well. Without saying anything more, he quickly took out the elite armament fan. 1. Wu Qing means heartless. Chu Feng opened up the elite armament fan. At a near distance, he found out that on the fan, there was really a picture imprinted. There were still a few distinct lines on the picture, but most of them were blurry. In a normal person's perspective, indeed, it was a useless picture. However, when Chu Feng gazed with greater detail, his eyes couldn't help lighting up, because he subconsciously felt that there were a few hidden things in the picture. So he quickly revolved the spirit power in his body and concentrated it into his eyes. When the spirit power finished condensing, Chu Feng's eyes instantly changed greatly. Special power was inside his eyes, and in short, the fierceness was a bit frightening. That special change happened because Chu Feng used the heaven's eyes. He grasped but the most basic level of the heaven's eyes power. To be more precise, he was just barely into the introduction, so he was still unable to control the power of the heaven's eyes. If he used it immediately, it would make his gaze appear incomparably ferocious. However, if Chu Feng became proficient in the heaven's eyes, he could make such ferociousness fade away and invisibly see through everything. It was very powerful. And the most mystical thing was when Chu Feng used the heaven's eyes and looked back at the elite armament fan's picture. He discovered that the picture was actually changing. Many hazy lines started to become clear. At the end, the initially very blurry picture, being gazed at by Chu Feng's heaven's eyes, became a half-finished map. And that map was indeed a treasure map. In the heart of the map, there were 4 big words. Spiritual wolf, immortal mountain. Spiritual wolf. Organisms formed by the congregation of natural essences, because they have unique spiritual natures and bodies, are named spiritual beings. When spiritual beings are successfully shaped, they can shock the world with their supreme divine might. Chu Feng, if this map is real, you will definitely be able to find a very superb treasure, because the spiritual awareness of spiritual beings are great supplements for cultivation. Just by seeing the 4 words spiritual wolf, immortal mountain, Egi exclaimed excitedly, "You're right, but sadly, the level of my heaven's eyes is not sufficient. I can merely find the rough location of the spiritual wolf, immortal mountain, and I am also unable to restore the paths within the spiritual wolf, immortal mountain on this map. I'm afraid it is not easy to find the spiritual lair and spiritual veins. Besides, even more, I cannot determine the genuineness of this map." Chu Feng sighed with a bit of regret. After some pulse-searching method studying, Chu Feng roughly understood the various types of treasures hidden in the world. One was the tomb type, meaning the location of powerful cultivators' tombs, or the artifacts constructed by powerful cultivators. Most of them were man-made. The other was the natural oddity type, formed from the gathering of natural essence. However, natural oddities branched out to many different types as well. One were queer objects. For example, they were flowers, grasses, trees formed by natural essence accumulation, or extremely strange rocks, or just some random odd things. Those things, despite containing enormous power and even had intelligence and the ability to move, ultimately had different bodies than humans or beasts, so they were named as queer objects. Other than queer objects, another type were spiritual beings. Spiritual beings were similarly born from the accumulation of natural essence, but after maturation, not only would they acquire intelligence as well as power that belonged to themselves, they would even have a body of a human or a beast. Spiritual beings always took longer to form than queer objects, but after they did, they would always be stronger. Some would then just hide within the mountains. Some would just stir up chaos in a certain area. But one thing unquestionable was their strength. According to the indication of the map, the so-called spiritual wolf immortal mountain was obviously an area where a spiritual being was being formed. When a spiritual being was being formed, it would use the earth as its body. Their own awareness was hidden within the earth. Along with the spiritual awareness growth in strength, their external telluric appearance becomes clearer as well. When matured, the earth and the spiritual awareness combines, and at that time, the vessel it grew in, an enormous mountain range, or a special forest, becomes its real physical body. They were incomparably huge, and they had peerless divine might. From one sentence of the pulse-searching method's chant, Chu Feng learnt that there was once a spiritual being with the body of a continent after it matured. From that, it could be seen how strong spiritual beings were. And if he were to find the spiritual being, what Chu Feng aimed to do was to search for the spiritual awareness within the special land, because spiritual awarenesses were great cultivation resources. They were the foundations of spiritual beings, and to cultivators, there were endless beneficial effects. But how could spiritual awarenesses be that easy to find? First, you had to find the entrance, also known as the spiritual lair. Then, you had to find the paths to the spiritual awareness after entering the spiritual lair. Those were also known as the spiritual veins. So, even if you found the entrance, you had to find the veins. If one wished to obtain spiritual awareness, they had to plan and spend quite a bit. That map indeed recorded the place where a spiritual being concealed itself, and likely also recorded the positions of the spiritual lair and spiritual veins. But Chu Feng could do nothing as with his current heaven's eyes. He could simply not clear up spiritual lair on the map, nor the lines of the spiritual veins. That also infinitely increased the difficulty in finding the spiritual awareness. However, that was not the most important thing. Most importantly, even if Chu Feng restored a large portion of the map, he could not determine if it was real or not. If you have to blame something, you can only blame your incompetence in cultivating the heaven's eyes. If you had cultivated them well, how could you possibly not see the genuineness of this map? Regardless, you're in control. To go or not to go, choose yourself. I will not meddle at all. Eggy poked at his hardships jokingly. Really, I didn't plan to go. After all, you also know I still have a weak grasp over the pulse-searching method. But, according to the indications on this map, the so-called spiritual wolf immortal mountain is truly not far from this place. Since we're so close, it's rather worth it to go take a look. It wouldn't matter if it's real or fake, since I should be able to tell when I see the real spiritual wolf immortal mountain. Chu Feng smiled and said, spiritual beings could not be underestimated. Although they took a long time to shape, several tens of thousands of years if short, several tens of millions of years if long, spiritual awarenesses that existed for only several thousand years, or several hundred years, or even a few dozen years, still had very outstanding effects. Besides, looking at the elite armament fan, it seemed to be a bit aged. If that map was real, it meant that the spiritual being inside the spiritual wolf immortal mountain likely existed for quite some time. Of course, Chu Feng was not willing to give it up. TCH. If you want to go, then go. No need to make up excuses. But before going, increase your strength. Eggy naughtily curled her lips. She understood Chu Feng very clearly. Not to mention it being close. Even if it were far, judging by his character, he would definitely go and check it out. It's time to see what this son of magma tastes like. Chu Feng chuckled. After putting away the elite armament fan in his hand, he took out the Son of Magma. Looking at it, Chu Feng's face was filled with expectation. That thing was very impressive. Saying that it was a queer object wasn't too right, and saying it was a spiritual being wasn't right either. Queer objects were not humanoid, nor did they really have physical bodies. So, precisely speaking, queer objects were spiritual consciousnesses without physical bodies of their own. As for spiritual beings, they could only use the earth itself as a body after maturation. Only then could they count as having a physical body. So it could be said that spiritual beings were spiritual awarenesses that could combine with the earth. But the Son of Magma started out as a humanoid shape. Its appearance was the exact same as a human infant, and the natural energy it contained was very terrifying as well. So Chu Feng determined that the Son of Magma was another type of natural oddity, also the strongest and most terrifying type. A sacred entity. Sacred entities were fated to be stronger than queer objects and spiritual beings. However, sacred entities were existences that people always feared and dared not to disturb. The energy that they, regardless if they had a shape or not, contained was too berserk. It could simply not be used by cultivators, and those who dared to refine them were undoubtedly suicidal. So, though sacred entities were powerful in reality, they were useless to cultivators. They were only existences that people dreaded. But to Chu Feng, the sacred entity was a great cultivation supplement within great cultivation supplements. For example, the Son of Magma in Chu Feng's hands currently. It was going to raise Chu Feng's cultivation greatly. Let me see what you taste like. After Chu Feng finished the appropriate preparations, he impatiently started to refine the Son of Magma. Because of its body, there was something special about refining it. Chu Feng could not consume it directly, so he had to first use a spirit formation to bind it. Then he had to enter the formation himself. After doing that, he used the power of the spirit formation, which borrowed the source energy consumption method, and refined the Son of Magma bit by bit. Asterisk, when a nearly invisible strand of gas was taken out of the Son of Magma's body, and after it entered his own body, Chu Feng strongly felt how wild the power was. If merely a single strand was like that already, Chu Feng could really imagine how berserk the body the Son of Magma was. However, the divine lightning in Chu Feng's body was not there for a joke. No matter how much wilder the power got, as long as it entered Chu Feng's body, it would be immediately consumed by the divine lightning in his dantian. There would not even be any residue remaining. Along with Chu Feng's success in refining the strand of aura, the refinement spirit formation also successfully functioned. Layers and layers of powerful aura started to endlessly surge out of the Son of Magma's body and enter Chu Feng's own body. They were all absorbed and refined by Chu Feng. At the end, the Son of Magma's body started to split. The faint gas started to become fiery red gas. With that, the Son of Magma's power became even wilder. But to Chu Feng, it mattered not as he continued absorbing. Like that, the terrifying existence, the indestructible sacred entity, was thoroughly refined by Chu Feng. After refining the Son of Magma completely, Chu Feng's aura rose from the 3rd level of the heaven realm to the 5th level of the heaven realm. Although he had already expected that, after he truly stepped into the 5th level of the heaven realm, Chu Feng was still elated. His happy face was so happy that flowers bloomed. It was because also, with his own divine lightning's power, Chu Feng cultivation could become equivalent to the 8th level of the heaven realm. The 8th level of the heaven realm. In addition to Chu Feng's special methods, it was not ridiculous to deal with those in the 9th level of the heaven realm. So, with Chu Feng's current cultivation, he was nearly invincible within the heaven realm. Although cultivation like that was only ordinary in the Eastern Sea region, it greatly increased what Chu Feng had to protect his life. After all, Chu Feng only broke into the heaven realm recently, but so soon already he was that near to becoming a martial lord. All of that completely relied on the assistance of all sorts of natural oddities and cultivation resources. More and more, Chu Feng realized the strength of his divine lightning. As long as there were powerful cultivation resources available, Chu Feng did need to worry about being unable to break through. No matter how much higher the realms were, Chu Feng had no problem entering them. Haha, it feels so good. It is truly a sacred entity. Although its formation was quite recent, as it only formed for several years, sacred entities are, after all, sacred entities. The source energy of sacred entities is indeed greatly beneficial. And as Chu Feng rejoiced, Eggy also cheered. It turned out that, as Chu Feng refined the son of magma, the source energy within the sacred entity was also absorbed by Eggy. Her current cultivation had rose from the 2nd level of the heaven realm to the 6th level of the heaven realm. It was even one level higher than Chu Feng. You've actually gotten a better harvest than I did. Chu Feng also discovered that change, and other than being shocked, he also felt happy for Eggy. Eggy was very strong. The unique power she grasped was very terrifying too. And even though Eggy was in the 6th level of the heaven realm, in terms of her real battle prowess, those in the 9th level of the heaven realm wouldn't be able to defeat her. And as Eggy was Chu Feng's assistant, when his assistant became stronger once again, naturally, Chu Feng was joyful. This son of magma is truly a sacred entity, or else it would be impossible for it to contain source energy. Moreover, the length of its formation was very short. It has probably only been forming for a few years. It likely didn't die because it left the depths of the ground, but rather it died before even leaving the underground world. The time it had been congregating for is too short. Although it had the appearance of an infant, in reality, it had yet to have real life, or else we would have gained a lot more from it. Sacred entities are, after all, sacred entities. Even though it was just a few years, it is still this effective. What level of enhancement would it bring if it had formed for several tens of thousands of years? Haha, Eggy was truly excited. Her stagnant cultivation finally moved forward again, so she truly felt exhilarated. Yeah, it didn't even have true life and had only been congregating for several years. Yet it already brings such effects. If it had been condensed for several tens of thousands of years, what would have happened instead? Chu Feng was similarly ecstatic. After experiencing the power of the sacred entity, Chu Feng hoped even more that the spiritual being was real. Although spiritual beings were far from being comparable to sacred entities, if the time it condensed for was long, then to Chu Feng, it would still have great effects. So, after both Chu Feng and Eggy made their breakthroughs, they impatiently restarted their journey and headed towards the so-called spiritual wolf immortal mountain, as stated on the map. But since it was the first time Chu Feng came to the Eastern Sea region, he was not familiar to anything. When he asked for directions on the road, there was no one who knew what the spiritual wolf immortal mountain was. But luckily, Chu Feng was a world spiritist. With the map on hand, he himself could find the general locations. And finally, Chu Feng found the spiritual wolf immortal mountain. However, despite being marked as the spiritual wolf immortal mountain on the map, it wasn't called the spiritual wolf immortal mountain by the locals. It was called according to the locals' introduction, there was originally a nameless mountain. Roughly 1,000 years ago, it suddenly rose from the grounds. However, within the changes of the years, several mountain peaks were endlessly altered. At the end, they became as sharp as wolf ivories, so the mountain was named coming outside and looking at it from the ground. It was indeed as how the locals described it as. The highest mountain peaks of were like wolf ivories. They were very special and very strange as well. This mountain range is not simple. It seems like the map is more or less real. Just by seeing the mountain peaks that were like wolf ivories, Chu Feng determined that was very special. And in order to observe the mountain even better, Chu Feng rose into the sky and only stopped when he was several tens of thousands of meters off from the ground and could put the entirety of into his eyes. This is when Chu Feng used the heaven's eyes to gaze down from above to see his calm face immediately changed, because with the power of the heaven's eyes, Chu Feng discovered that it wasn't just a few ivories that made up other than the ivories, there was even a hazy outline. the body of a huge wolf. That truly was a place where a spiritual being congregated. And according to Chu Feng's estimations, if that spiritual being finished congregating, it could not be underestimated, and it would be a very terrifying existence. But currently, there were only a few ivories that were physically formed by the spiritual being. However, at least it meant that the spiritual being had been congregating for a minimal of 1,000 years. If the spiritual awareness was still inside, it likely also congregating quite a bit of spiritual power. Chu Feng stood in the air, looking down. After observing for a long time, he was still unable to see where the spiritual layer was at, let alone the positions of the spiritual veins and spiritual awareness. As he could do nothing, Chu Feng had no choice but to fly down and start to search the vast wolf ivory mountain. He wanted to find the spiritual layer by searching every single inch. Asterisk boom, boom, boom asterisk. But just as Chu Feng arrived at the middle section of the continuous mountain, from the east side of the mountain, he heard deafening explosions bursting out endlessly. Approaching closer and taking a look, Chu Feng discovered that it was a battle between a monstrous beast and a person. That monstrous beast was 20 meters tall, dozens of meters long, and as it stood there it was like a small hill. Its appearance was like a pangolin. All over its body there was indestructible armor, but more importantly, it had the cultivation of the 7th level of the heaven realm. That monstrous beast could not be looked down upon. For each step it took, everything within the circumference of 100 miles would shake. The surrounding trees were already forcibly split and had fallen from the shock. The huge hammer it held in its hand was even incomparably ferocious. Every time it spun, a wild gale would be created. When it slammed down, it would create a deep pit. There were already thousands of holes in the mountain range it was in, making it completely unrecognizable. The person fighting against it was not simple either, also being in the 7th level of the heaven realm. Moreover, it was a female. She had already passed the Middle Ages and was likely a bit over 30. She still retained her grace, but more importantly, her cultivation. At that age, it was very impressive for her to have stepped into the 7th level of the heaven realm. After all, in the continent of the 9 provinces, those who stepped into the 7th level of the heaven realm could be counted by your own fingers, and not a single one wasn't an old person. To be able to enter that level at that age did not mean that she was powerful, though. It just meant that the cultivators in the Eastern Sea region were on a completely different level than the people in the continent of the 9 provinces. Asterisk boom 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 asterisk. The monstrous beast and the woman fought against one another, continuously creating terrifying ripples. But Chu Feng could see that the woman was going to be defeated. At present, all she thought of was how to escape the attacking range of the monstrous beast. Yet she was firmly held in place by the monstrous beast and had no chance. This monstrous beast seems a bit off, as if it lost its awareness. Chu Feng examined with his sharp spirit power and discovered the monstrous beast was bloodthirsty and furious. Despite the woman asking why it was attacking her again and again, the monstrous beast did not reply and did nothing but continue throwing out fatal attacks at the woman. It meant that either the monstrous beast was insane or some problem must have appeared. In addition, Chu Feng had speedily went around the mountain range and discovered that even though there were quite a few monstrous beasts, there weren't many in the heaven realm. Why did such a powerful one appear suddenly? Those strange things overlapped one another, and there must be some reason for all of it. However, regretfully, it's not related to you, so you need not worry. Chu Feng was not that irked and that bored to care about another person's life. If the person in front of him was swapped with one that had a great disparity in strength against their opponent, or if a cultivator was bullying a commoner, then Chu Feng would definitely interfere. But right now, 2 existences with similar strengths were fighting. Perhaps there was some misunderstanding in between them, or grudges, or maybe some other reason. So Chu Feng did not want to bother with it. In the world of cultivators, the powerful reigned supreme. There were too many battles, too many killings. If Chu Feng interfered with those things every time he saw them happen, he simply couldn't handle it, nor have the time. Wait, there are other people. But just as Chu Feng left for a short distance, he discovered that two people were hiding within a nearby forest. One was a male, one was a female, and both were old. Their cultivations were not weak either, both being in the 8th level of the heaven realm, even stronger than the woman before. Looking at their clothes, they were likely with that woman. But currently, not only were they not helping the woman out with her battle against the monstrous beast, instead, they were watching as though they were watching two tigers brawling. Such a twist in circumstances caught Chu Feng's attention. With the propulsion of curiosity, he concealed any traces of himself and gradually neared. At the same time, he started to concentrate his spirit power to eavesdrop into their conversation. "Old guy, are we really going to just watch as the big miss gets killed by this monstrous beast? Aren't we a bit too black-hearted? After all, in so many years, the family master has treated us quite well." As the old man looked at the scene in the distance, her face revealed some unwillingness. "Do you think I want this? But our damn boy has been locked up in the Ma family. If we don't follow their instructions to kill her, the one who will die is our boy. Do you hope that she dies or our brat dies?" The old man rebuked. "That goddamn brat. He really gives us nothing but troubles. If this becomes known, where will our faces go?" Hearing those words, the old woman started to curse, but never mentioned anything regarding saving the big miss. From that, it could be seen that she had decided, "Our damn brat is disappointing. But if there is blame, the big miss can only be blamed for being too serious. The Lai family and Ma family have already allied, and both hold the key to open that treasure. Right now, the time is ripe. So what's wrong with directly opening it together with the Ma family?" But Big Miss disapproved regardless of anything. She did whatever she could to disrupt them, and even recruited soldiers with high prices, and looked for people she could trust. Clearly, she aimed to strengthen the Lai family's power and wanted to open up the treasure alone. Obviously, the Ma family will not be happy with her actions. Thinking of ways to remove the Big Miss is some reasonable, so that's why I say that she simply looked to die. In other words, if Big Miss continues this, sooner or later, there will be a huge battle between the Lai family and the Ma family. If that happens, many innocents will be dragged in. So, our current actions can be said to be helping the Lai family. We are saving the Lai family. There is nothing to blame on ourselves. The old man very eloquently turned the betrayal of their own family into such a righteous action. Treasure. However, Chu Feng's eyes lit up when he heard that word. If the Wolf Ivory Mountain had a treasure, what treasure was it? The first thing Chu Feng thought of was the spiritual being hidden within the Wolf Ivory Mountain. Could it be that it was already discovered? It seems like I must interfere with today's matters. At that instant, Chu Feng spun around and flew towards the circle of battle between the woman and the monstrous beast. The events of today were very possibly related to the spiritual being and the spiritual awareness within the Wolf Ivory Mountain, even if they were unrelated to the spiritual awareness. Since there was a treasure, Chu Feng would definitely not merely watch with hands inside his sleeves. He decided to barge into that matter. "There is no enmity between us. Why must you continue pressing on and desire to kill me?" At that very instant, the woman was completely exhausted. She was completely pressured by the monstrous beast. She kept on questioning the monstrous beast, but it was useless as it responded with only deafening roars and boundless bloodlust. ****, and just at that moment, another furious roar sounded. The huge hammer in the monstrous beast's hand slammed downwards at her once again. At that moment, the woman subconsciously moved to dodge, but she could do nothing as her heaven power was completely drained. Her speed did not match her thoughts, and it was already impossible to evade that strike.